over here right now trying to get ready for the show. You could have done it. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bust your butthole. Hit a button, man.
I was just saying, I didn't want to catch you off guard. I didn't want you to be in the middle of picking your nose or, scratching yourself.
No, I'm just trying to get this tweet up that has all the right stupid hashtags.
Okay.
Kim Green, Bud Elliott, Roy Cummings, Matt Chatham. All right, we're good.
Top of the morning to you. How the heck are you, Miller and Moulton? It's a Thursday. How's your week going? Hope it's going pretty well. We're back in the grind now. Second full week of the month. The holidays are definitely in the rearview mirror. NFL playoffs about to start. It's a new year. We're back in the grind. Mark, how you holding up?
I'm doing great, David. Doing great. Back in my favorite place to do a show.
Where's that?
The spare bedroom in my house. Where else, of course?
For those that weren't with us during our second act, because this is our third act, we didn't quite have a studio. And by quite have a studio, we didn't have a studio. And so we created two different ones, both of them, however, in Mark's residence before eventually COVID hit, and then we went our separate ways. And we really didn't reunite until the third act. I mean, we did, year and a half? Just in separate locations?
We did a year and a half minus one show.
Right.
Nothing better than all of a sudden David had some technical difficulties. And all of a sudden, he just texted me, I'm coming over.
Right. I'll be there in 18 minutes.
And that was the only show. And that was a stretch because I had to pull a lot of things together. We couldn't even do that now. Half the studio's at your old residence.
I know. Our stuff, some of it's in the back of a car. It's in two different rooms. Yeah, it'd be tough to pull that off right now. But
did your wife ever complain about random microphones and things just lying around different places? The fact that you took a den and turned it into a studio. Did any of that ever come up? Because it really and truly never did here, other than the occasional bit of jealousy that when I look at my wife and say, I'm going to work now, and I would walk upstairs.
Yeah, my wife, because her room, and if you don't know, my wife and I do not sleep in the same room. Because she's asleep by 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I stay up later than that. And until I got a sleep machine and what have you, I sounded like a jackhammer. All right, so we do not sleep together. Okay, I mean, every now and then it's make it happen night, but we do not sleep together. And so she has her room and I have mine. And her room, Mark, is messier than mine. So she can't say a word about my room. Not a word.
You guys are both messy?
Yeah, for different reasons.
No, because you're messy. You're not crazy messy.
No.
I've been around you enough. I wouldn't call you're not a slob.
No.
There's a big difference between messy and a slob.
Right.
You are messy.
Yeah. Yeah, I spill food and, crumbs.
But you leave things out. There's clutter. I've been to your place before. You're not, like I said, you're not slobs, but there's clutter. You're not overly neat. I'm not, but I demand that demand's a strong word. Let's be honest. I really try hard to keep our kitchen clutter free. Like the top kitchen counter, that bar area that ends up just being something where bills collect. That drives me crazy. And I have found, because my wife is someone who is in charge at work and tells people what to do, that she's not much for cleaning, clutter. Other people do her clutter work for her, hence me. I've learned in 10 years, don't bother about the clutter she leaves. Just pick it up, put it away.
Right.
And she does the same thing with me, keys and phone and glasses. So it's a mutual thing that goes on that we both just pick up after one another and try not to speak of it.
There's a bit of hypocrisy in our house. I don't touch anything of hers. and she will move my stuff. All right. So needless to say, you can understand how well that goes over when I'm traveling and I'm gone 5 days at a time and I come home and it's like, hey, where's such and such? Oh, well, I put that away. No. Don't put anything away.
But do you ever challenge her with where is it? And then she says, I don't know. I put it away.
Well, that has happened. And it's kind of like, well, when you go to work, I'll spend the rest of the day trying to find it. So yes, you've been married 25 years. You know, we all understand that part of a relationship. It's fun. It keeps things fresh, Mark.
It is the reason, however, David, that you clean before the cleaners come.
and you wash dishes before putting them in the dishwasher.
But if you clean before the cleaners come, you know where your stuff is. If not, then I'm wondering where Sandra, the wonderful lady from Colombia who doesn't speak much English, put my stuff, because I really can't ask her.
Not for another 2, 3, or 4 weeks.
2 weeks.
Whenever
2 weeks.
It is. Right, when she
Where's
comes
that
back.
fork?
I make big pronouncements. We do it once a month, and I make big pronouncements. I'm like, don't touch any of this. Just leave this. And they look at me and go, I really need to straighten this up. I could clean this. No. I only want 94.6% of the house clean. This is my 5.4%. Please leave it alone. So Miller and Moulton on this Thursday as we begin today to turn our full attention towards wild card weekend. I saw a stat. And if this was the Dan Patrick Show, I would nominate it for Stat of the Day, bum. So in the last 3 wild card weekends, now remember, 2018, 2019, there were only 4 games. Beginning last year, we expanded the playoffs from 12 to 16 teams. We had 6 games. So 4, 4, and 6. We have had 14 games the last 3 wild card weekends. Mark, the underdogs, how do you think they have fared straight up in those 14 games?
Well, there's a key here. You said underdogs. We're not talking about road teams. Road teams aren't always the underdogs in these games. 14 games. I'm going to say the underdogs were 7-7.
Really good guess. 8-6 straight up.
Wow.
Straight up. Yeah. And for those of us that occasionally pay attention to sports for non-entertainment purposes only, therefore, Mark, if straight up underdogs are 8-6, how do you think they've done against the number in these 14 games?
Then it's got to be somewhere around 12-4.
Well, your math's a little off.
But or 10-4. Sorry, 10-4. Yeah. 14 games, 10-4.
11-3. So how about that little? Listen, it could all go kaplooey this weekend, but 8-6 straight up, 11-3 against the spread in the last 3 wild card weekends. And I throw that out there because now, do you, and I don't just mean you, Mark, and Felipe and myself, but everybody listening, do you, with those numbers, now look at these 6 games any differently? Because I don't know about you, Mark, but in the last 3 days, all I've been hearing is, well, I'm trying to find a road team that I think's going to win. Well, you better look for more than one based on the last 3 years, because what you should do based on the last 3 years is just take the points, period. And for that matter, you might as well pick them.
For the record, the lowest number of all of the wild card games is the Cowboys 49ers game that's sitting right now with Dallas as a 3-point favorite. The Rams are a 4-point favorite. The Bills are a 4-point favorite.
And I believe
the Bucks are 8.5. The Chiefs are 12.5.
And Raiders Bengals is what, around 5.5?
5.5. Sorry. Yep, that's 5.5.
Now, I think the one that has moved noticeably is the Niners Cowboys. I thought that one opened in the 4.5 range, and it's down to 3. Usually the money comes in on the more popular team, that being the Cowboys, but it looks as if the money this week has come in so far on the Niners to move that down, I think, a full point.
What I have is I had that one the same, but these things open differently. I have the Cincinnati game opening at 6.5. That's moved a point down. The Bucks has stayed relatively stationary. It opened at 9. It's 8.5 now. But that's fascinating because if underdogs are 10 or 11-3, we've got 6
spread.
Against the spread. We got 6 games in which the home team is a favorite in all of them and a considerable favorite in really 3 of the 6.
So based on the last 3 years, where the underdog is 8-6 straight up and 11-3 against the spread, you would then look at these 6 games and say conservatively 3 of the 6 underdogs would win straight up and 4 of the 6 would cover. That's based on just a 3-year cycle here.
And that also says, I don't know what these spreads have been, but you would take the smallest ones. That's taking the Niners, that's taking the Cardinals, and that's taking the New England Patriots. Oh, did I just say the New England Patriots, Bills fan? How much did this information that David just passed along scare the hell out of you?
And Cowboy fan also, which I think is a little nervous about this matchup with the Niners because they know that San Francisco's pretty physical.
Right. David, let's be frank here. The Cowboys were scared the moment, Cowboy fan was scared the moment they entered the playoffs. And rightly so.
Well, I can see where they wouldn't have a lot of confidence. They haven't had a deep run in a while. And by a while, I mean the first term of the Clinton administration.
I literally texted a buddy of mine because I've got the Bucs season tickets, and I said, "Hey, I don't know if I'm going to sell them or not." I said, "But if the Bucs played the Cowboys, could you go?" I didn't even say would you, because he's got a wife and 2 kids. I know that it's not that easy when someone works a lot, has very few days off, and says, "On my one day off, honey, I'm going to take off for the whole day." So I was just like, "Could you?" And he's like, "You're not going to sell them?" I go, I don't know. I haven't been to a game all year, and I said, "You're not going to beat the Niners anyhow, but if." And he just texted back, "Man, it's nice to know at least you're rooting for the Cowboys from a season ticket standpoint. It's nice to know at least the Bucs season ticket holder is thinking in terms of profitability. Can the Cowboys win a game?"
Oh, yes, it's a win-win for the Bucs season ticket holder. It means they're playing in the divisional round at home, which hasn't happened very often in their history. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can count on one hand the number of home divisional playoff games that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have ever had. Matter of fact, I know you can. I don't want to try to do it off the top of my head, but I'll figure it out during the commercial break. And I know it doesn't get to a second hand. So, Mark, if that happens, what you will have in your hands is a rarity.
Absolutely.
Home divisional playoff game.
But if you wanted to be really greedy, what you would say is you need the Niners to win. Because, David, if the Niners win, I think they've got the best shot at upsetting the Green Bay Packers of any of the teams that will play the Packers in round 2 of the NFL playoffs. And then, David, the Bucs could be home for the entire month of January.
Oh, that is true. That is true. Roy Cummings will join us to talk about the Bucs Cowboys playoff game at the top of our 8 o'clock hour. We have a heck of a show lined up for you. We'll go live to St. Pete. We'll be there a month from now for the Grand Prix. Some more news involving the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Pete. College football with Bud Elliott not only put Alabama, Georgia to bed, but also look briefly ahead to the 2022 season, and between now and the second signing day, what it is that Bud Elliott expects to happen.
And we leap into the portal. We'll just leap right into the portal, everybody.
Whoa. Do people survive cannonballing into the portal?
There are certain teams that look as if they're surviving. There are certain teams that have looked at what happened last year and said, we can do that too. One of them just may be in Tallahassee.
Hey, get that Mel Tucker blueprint out. We're going to follow it.
We can get good quick. We're in the ACC, right? Okay, just checking.
And we'll also head to New England for a pretty sexy wild card playoff game. The Patriots and the Bills. Love the third meetings of the year. Arizona and the Rams, Patriots and Bills, Mark, both meeting for a third time.
Will the Patriots throw the football in the third meeting?
Not quite as windy, but colder, apparently.
Doesn't matter, David. They have a recipe to win, and it's not throwing the football.
Well, that's true. In the last few weeks, Mac Jones has thrown it a lot, and they've lost. So you might be onto something.
Put that thing away, Mr. Jones.
Matt Chatham, who covers the Patriots, played for him. He's got 3 Super Bowl rings. He will join us in the 8 o'clock hour as well. It is 16 minutes past the hour of 6 a.m. in the East. Thanks so much for being with us. Top of the morning to you. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network. Well, Bigham, you got to like the Cards' chances because you're on the road. I mean, would you lose once this year on the road? Didn't Arizona go 8-1 on the road this year? So why not? Steve, just a precaution. That's all. He's been around some people. So he's been gracious, playing it safe.
How bad's this light?
Actually, it's fine. So, no, well, I'm in the studio. I'm across the glass from Philly. Mark's at home.
So I know that's a little darker. It's just not so damn in my face.
Yeah,
is that all right?
Absolutely.
Okay. We never said why I'm at home. I'm just at home. Should be pretty apparent to everybody. I do not have COVID. That's all I will say. But I work with someone that has to travel, and I want to make sure that he gets to where he needs to get to and have it not be my fault.
Although a home game this week.
I know, but.
Yeah. That's so awesome. I was thinking about this driving in because Arizona and the Rams is the Monday night game, right?
Right.
Well, if the Cowboys win,
which they're not going to, but okay.
But let's just go with me here. If the Cowboys win, won't the Bucs Cowboys play on Saturday? Because they can't make the winner of Rams Cardinals play Saturday in Lambeau, can they? I mean, that would be a total stick it to you job. I mean, Don't you think it depends? Now, if the Niners win, they can have the Niners on the 6 days play at Lambeau and have the Bucks host the winner of Rams Cardinals on 6 days on Sunday. But don't you think that just from a fairness standpoint, that they would not screw the Arizona Rams winner and that Tampa Dallas would be a Saturday game?
God, I love you, David. I love that you think logically and you want to take care of teams. Do you think the NFL gives two shits about Arizona or the LA Rams?
I do think the NFL doesn't. No, of course, no. I mean, Mark, let's.
Okay.
Mark,
all right. I just wanted to get that.
Mark, let's be honest. You asked the question, does the NFL give two shits about? You can basically erase everything after that.
That's
it
true.
It doesn't matter what the fill in the blank is after that. The answer is no.
That's true.
But
I had to redo a shelf just so I had a proper shelf for you. It's not the whole thing because the desk has been moved to the wall. It's not the way.
Is that like half open there?
Oh yeah, I had to half open it just so I had something behind me.
It's nice though.
We got a Burt Sugar book up here, Baseball Hall of Fame. Got to have our man Burt up there. That's just one of those things to me that always has to be in the background when we do. Like if we actually had our own studio, I'd have a Burt something always. God. You're gonna have to tell me when we're coming back. I'm not hearing any music. I'm not hearing. And do you hear commercials when you're on the road?
Yeah, I hear. Yeah. Now
I've not heard. I didn't hear the open. I was talking to you when the open's going on.
Oh.
I don't know if it went over the air or not, but I had no clue.
Well, and the one thing we have found out is you can't hear Felipe. You can hear me, but you can't hear him. So like when he's trying to talk to you during the break, you're not hearing him.
It's on Felipe. No offense. That's not. If I can hear you.
Listen, I don't want him pressing any more buttons. We might end up on the air.
That's a great point.
So.
What's Bud's email? FSU.
23 minutes past the hour. Top of the morning to you, Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network, the Florida Sports Network. Beginning to look ahead for the first time this week at Super Wild Card Weekend. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 playoff games, including our first Monday night playoff game.
We'll paint that wild card for $99.99.
We're going to spread this sucker out as much as we can. Get as much money as we can from as many networks as we can. Amazon, you'll have to wait 10 more years before we get your money.
But Super Wild Card Weekend, because if it doesn't have a catchy name, it can't really happen in today's sporting world.
I will say, full disclosure, Miller and Moulton in our first act could not have trashed the NFL more when they moved the draft and split it up into 3 days. Dumbest thing ever. It crushed them. Came off the top rope, and we could have pinned the NFL quickly, but instead we kept doing 2.5 count, getting up, tapping the other partner, coming off the top rope, doing it again. We were dragging the sucker out. Absolutely crushed them. Couldn't have been more wrong.
No, and I don't know if we'll be right or wrong on this. Look, more playoffs never bothers anybody, David. But I just wonder come Monday if the NFL fan is salivating over Rams Cardinals, or if they're going to treat it like it's a normal Monday night football game, which does a great number. 7 to 10 million people watch Monday Night Football every week. I get it. But I'm just wondering with a playoff game and a good teams, but 2 unpopular NFL teams playing on Monday night. I don't know if you have many less popular teams than the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, I actually think that if the Lions were in the playoffs, there'd be more attraction than there would be the Cardinals. I think the Jags may be the only team in the league that's less popular than the Arizona Cardinals. The Rams, despite being in LA, no one in LA even cares. So I'm just curious how the Monday night game goes. Because, David, the 5 games Saturday and Sunday, I can sit down, fall asleep on the couch, wake back up, and do it all over again. I've got no issue with that. I am fascinated by what the Monday TV number is going to be like.
And I think that's as far as Miller and Moulton will go, because we are not going to criticize the NFL for moving a wild card playoff game to Monday because, well, the NFL will probably end up being right.
Right, and they would have been more right if they would have given a game that would have had a little more oomph.
I thought they were going to have the Bills play on Monday. And whoever it is they were playing, like we were wondering, the little game that the networks play is, and it's very much a behind the curtain, just your own little bubble. We were all spending Sunday guessing what networks were going to get what games and at what time. And I thought that either the Bengals or the Bills were going to get Monday night because both of their fan bases would have gone absolutely nuts for it. And
boy, if they had given us Bills and Patriots on Monday, now that would have done a really big number.
Right. That's where I thought they were going. And, but listen, they gave ABC, ESPN, the Chiefs and the Cowboys last weekend. And the Cowboys-Eagles game, which was damn near meaningless, was the highest rated game of the weekend on a Saturday night, which should be a message to the folks running the college football playoff, that if you put a really sexy game and the Cowboys are sexy, you can even put it on a Saturday night and people will watch, especially during the winter.
David, it'll be fascinating down the road. I think you're onto something there in that what we thought were the best television nights. Saturdays always, Friday and Saturdays have been bad nights. Okay, they're bad nights for network television. But the only thing that we really make appointment viewing anymore is live. With the way that we now tape shows and watch them at another time, there is one appointment viewing left. It's live sports. We don't care about award show anymore. We care about live sports. And with Saturday doing a big number, I think you are on to something that college football should be paying attention to, whether it's its national championship or whether it's the college semifinals as we go down the road.
Miller and Moulton here on the Florida Sports Network. And I know for the most part, the fan doesn't care, who's playing when and where. It's the playoffs. We'll find them, but it's the casual person. Now the NFL is lucky right now because it's apparently the only thing on television that people are consistently watching. I mean, it's not just 75 of the top 100. I've even seen where it's this past year during the football season anyway, 90 of the top 100 shows were football games. Now that's just from Labor Day on, but think about that. 90 of the top 100 TV shows that have aired in the last 4+ months have been sports and have been football.
Well, and that's why as we trashed what the national championship game did, you did have to put it in perspective that it was still one of the most watched things out there.
Right. It did do 22 million people. Second lowest all time, but it did do 22 million people. Monday Night Football, by the way, on average, did around 13 million people this year. Thursday Night Football did a little over 14 million. Which is funny. They finally have built Thursday Night Football up to what it is they wanted it to be. And it took damn near a generation. I mean, we've had Thursday Night Football now for, 12+ years? I mean, they've spent, remember, Bob Papa did Thursday Night Football. Brian Gumbel did Thursday Night Football. NBC and CBS split it for 4 years. Fox just did a 4-year run that was supposed to be 5. I mean, we've had Thursday Night Football for damn near a generation.
By the way, has it been viewed as an overwhelming success, a success? How has it been viewed inside the bubble, David?
Well, the NFL has viewed it as a success. And this year, ironically, when it was a lame duck year for Fox, Fox was like, damn, numbers are good this year. People are watching this. Is it the games? Why is it that more people are watching this year? I mean, it's not like Fox did anything different to promote it. But Thursday Night Football did really well this year. I wonder if it was just the overall hunger and thirst for the NFL that has fully come back this year. I mean, CBS did the best ratings televised in the NFL that they've done since like 2005 this year. Now, they got great games. They got games they don't normally get.
CBS was the benefactor of how they changed the viewing patterns. I mean, no longer is CBS an AFC only channel.
Right.
They've been giving them a far more just NFC versus NFC games. The way they're doing the whole postseason, it's crazy. But yeah, CBS did benefit from a lot better games this year than I ever recall them getting, David.
And this is, by the way, the future. And beginning next year, it will be even more in earnest, where you can't count, particularly like in Tampa, you're used to, hey, the Bucks are on and they're on, Fox and they're on at 1 or 425. Well, they may be on the local CBS affiliate more going forward. And the same thing in Southwest Florida, that's used to the Bucks on Fox and the Dolphins on CBS. Yeah, that's not going to be etched in stone like it used to be. All right, the games are going to be much more crossed over. And the reason for that, if you're interested, is because Fox has the better markets. They have the bigger cities. The NFC cities are bigger cities, more popular fan bases. So if you go game to game, Fox is going to get a bigger audience. Well, CBS is paying basically the same amount of money as Fox. And they're kind of like, hey, could we get better games? And the NFL went, well, come to think of it, yeah, that sounds fair. I mean, we are asking you to pay a little over $2 billion a year for this stuff. We could give you a few more Cowboys and Tampa Bay Bucks games. I think we could do that.
They got a lot more than you did this year.
Yes, they did.
It is ironic, though, the fact that, Brady did play on the CBS network for his entire career, and yet he leaves, they complain more that they don't get the good games. Pittsburgh's losing Ben. I mean, Pittsburgh's a smaller city. There's still a hell of a draw.
Yes, there's no question about it. But Fox had the bigger cities, the bigger draw teams. And let's face it, they got the Cowboys. I mean, that's 6 games a year right there.
Right. And as we've said, the Bears have had a pulse the last couple of years. When the Bears have a pulse, They move the needle.
Yes, they do.
Really well.
Yes, they do.
And they have the Packers who move the needle nationally as well. So
Miller and Moulton. The starting 5 is next here on the Florida Sports Network.
Hey, everybody, orangewhip.com. Get there right now. That's all I'm telling you. I know I can't hear the commercials. You can't hear the commercials, but one of them for this damn Orange Whip. Go buy it now. How about that?
I don't know if I want you to try to change anything, Felipe, because for purposes of air, everything is working fine. But the only 2 people that are hearing like the intros and the music and the commercials are you and me. All right. I don't mean over the air, but I mean like Mark's not hearing any of the bumpers. He's not hearing any of the commercials, and the Twitch audience isn't hearing any of it either. So I'm guessing it's a button on your end, but there's a big part of me that doesn't want you to touch anything. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. It's the same. Okay. Hmm.
Can't be the same because I can hear David.
Will do, Felipe.
I don't know, Chris. I'm not in the studio. And David sure as hell doesn't know.
No, I think he's talking about for you at home.
No. Once I'm in on this thing, everything should be the same for Felipe. Oh boy. Here he goes. He's going to look at the computer.
Nope, not the computer.
Don't do it.
I'm not touching. I'm not touching.
Don't do it.
I'm not touching anything.
Thank the Lord for that.
This is like the cleaning lady coming over. Leave my stuff alone.
We know you can hear us. You should be able to hear us. Problem is we can't hear the commercials. That just coming back from break would be nice.
Yeah, I think that's what people are commenting on, that for some reason, Mark, your mic at home, you sound like you're in a bit of a tunnel, just a little echo.
I can't do anything about it because I'm talking to a wall.
Right. Hello, wall. Smales, I think the sooner the Packers are eliminated, the greater the chance of him leaving.
Well, one, Chris, I'm not using a laptop. And two, it's very clear what mic I'm using because it says it on this. But thank you for your trying. I appreciate it. Just picking up this mic because that's how it's set up. We did shows here for 2 years. I know I'm stupid and all.
But, I mean, that's just my theory. I mean, some people would argue the other way, that if they win a Super Bowl, that's the perfect time to leave. Back in 30 seconds, Mark. $20 minutes before the hour. Thanks so much for being with us. Hope your week's going well. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network, the Florida Sports Network. Great show lined up for you. But first, it is time for well, we like to start with the NFL because apparently it's the most popular sport going. Doug Peterson interviewing with the Bears. He's already interviewed with the Jags. No word on if he is interviewing with the Dolphins, which would seem like a natural. Wouldn't it be ironic, Doug Peterson, Eagles head coach, that was who the Bears lost to in the double doink kick and all that? What do you think about Doug Peterson with the Bears?
I'm more thinking about Doug Peterson or somebody that's a head coach with the Miami Dolphins. I'm really getting irritated with the Miami Dolphins interviewing coordinators when there are head coaches out there that they could hire.
Here's the other thing, Mark, which should annoy Dolphin is, let's just say Brian Daboll's a guy they really want. Well, there are 3 teams out there that are also interviewing not just Brian Daboll, but they're interviewing the assistant general manager with the Bills. And those guys, when they're interviewing for the Bears, Vikings, and Giants jobs, are saying, well, I'd bring Brian Daboll. I'd just bring him right with me. We're a package. And meanwhile, the Dolphins don't have a general manager's job to open. And if you're Brian Daboll, do you want to go work for Chris Greer when you could potentially work for your guy who you've been working with in Buffalo?
David, I know that you said Chris Greer, and you're right in that line of thinking. And there are only 32 of these. So if you're being offered only one, maybe you have to take it. But at some point, when you look at what Stephen Ross has gone through as head coaches, as an owner, do you really want to go work for him?
He doesn't have a good track record. I think that's fair, right?
Right. I mean, he just got rid of a guy who had back-to-back winning seasons. Do you really want to go take that job when you can look from the outside and go, well, I'm not sure how good the personnel is, and he kept his personnel guy?
Eric Weddle has unretired. Remember Eric Weddle? Had a good career. A dozen years in the NFL. Good player. Safety. Yeah, he hasn't played in 2 years. He's 37. But he last played with the Rams in 2019 when he was a defensive captain and he called the signals.
Started every game, David, that year.
Yep. And he was a durable player. But they need a safety because Jordan Fuller, their starting strong safety, got hurt late fourth quarter of their loss Sunday to the Niners. He called their defensive signals. So, Mark, I think not only is Eric Weddle going to play, I think he may play a lot. He's a 37-year-old safety who hasn't played in 2 years.
David, is it crazy for me to think he's going to be starting on Monday night?
Wow. I mean, don't you have to try to isolate him in coverage?
Yeah, but I mean, right now, if I were to say he's starting Monday night, would you agree or disagree?
I would.
Right.
Right. But I think I would hedge my bet and say disagree. But he might make his way onto the field for second and third downs, if you know what I mean. Just to call the signals. I don't know. It's a fascinating signing, though. And it goes back to teams bring in people that they're familiar with.
Trust is everything inside that room. You're right, David. Right.
Even if they're 37 and they haven't played in 2 years.
I know it sounds cliche and all of those things, but coordinators just look and go, I know I can trust him to make the right call when we get X look. We know he's not going to he may make the mistake because his legs aren't there, but he's not going to make the mistake with his brain, and we need the brain right now.
College football news. Jack Campbell's a linebacker for Iowa who led the nation in tackles this year. He had nearly 150. and he's decided to not enter the draft and return to Iowa. Meanwhile, Penn State running back Noah Cain's decided to transfer, as has two-time All-Big 12 defensive end O'Shawn Mathis from TCU. So they both entered the transfer portal. One other college football note, and Mark, I'm guessing you might have caught this because you're a fan of a Big Ten team, and it involves the Big Ten. They kind of rearranged their schedule yesterday.
Kinda? They basically blew up the original one and started over, David.
Well, they changed some cross-divisional games because of the COVID year. Like some teams played one another who weren't supposed to play one another. Last year's schedule was just totally redone. All right, there was no rhyme. It's like, listen, we're going to play and do the best we can, and this is not a normal schedule. Thank you very much. Well, now you got teams that were going to play 3 years in a row who are in different divisions. Well, they don't want that, so they changed some of those games. Then they took a look at the schedule and they said to Penn State, you always have to play like Ohio State and Michigan in back-to-back weeks. We're going to break that up, and a few other things. I don't know how it affects your Spartans when you took a look at the new schedule, but
not too tremendously. I think they moved the Michigan game to Halloween weekend, which, I'm already going to have to get a pass from the wife to fly to Ann Arbor, and put Penn State at the end of their schedule. At the end of the day, whatever. But I just found it interesting that, it was blown up. It wasn't changed. It was blown up.
I will say Iowa now ends up playing its two biggest division games in back-to-back weeks. That was the only one that I saw in which they moved it, and I said, I don't know if they did them any favors. But
they got to play like for an axe and a pig on back-to-back weeks?
Stop it.
That guy came back so he can go 8-4.
College hoops. Good game in what used to be the O-Dome. Gators lost, however, to 12th ranked LSU 64-58. Duke without Coach K went to Winston-Salem and beat a good Wake team by 12. I know Duke's lost a couple games and all, but Duke's A game is better than anybody else in that conference, and it's not close. Michigan State barely got by the Gophers at home, 71-69. Game of the night was probably the Big East. A couple of ranked teams. Villanova edged Xavier 64-60. UCF
started at like 6:30, David. That was the kicker with Villanova. And that whenever you get that early Big East game, that is a delight.
Well, listen, when they started doing this a couple of years ago, you showed your age. I think you were turning 50, and you said, my new favorite conference, the Big East.
Big East, baby.
6:30 games. I can watch a game and be bed by 9.
Oh, fantastic.
UCF beat Memphis by 10. South Florida lost by 12 to SMU. South Florida's women's team, which is ranked in both polls, did beat Tulane by 13. FGCU, which is ranked 23rd in the coaches poll, beat Kennesaw State by 35. NBA, I went 2-0 against the number in the NBA last night. I said take the Wiz and lay the 4.5 against Orlando. They won by 6. And the Heat were on the road getting 3.5. I said, you got to take the Heat. They're a better team. Heat won by 24, 115-91. Celtics and Knicks both won to get back to 500. There are 11 teams, Mark, in the East, 500 or better. There are only 8 such teams in the West. The conferences have finally switched. It took a generation.
We'll see.
Tell you what, I think the Cleveland Cavaliers are for real. They went to Utah and beat the Jazz by 20.
Right. On the road last night. Just whacked the Jazz, who was a good basketball team.
Right. 20. Brooklyn, by the way, listen, if anybody's picking anybody to come out of the East but Brooklyn, I'll take it right now. I really will. I know the Sixers and the Heat and others. I just listen. When Brooklyn decides they want to play, nobody's got anything in the East for the Nets. They went to Chicago as the best record in the East and beat them by 26. And the game wasn't that close.
Right, and Kyrie only had like 12 or something like that, played 20 minutes. So they're not even, their big three's not even playing on a regular basis the way they want them to yet.
Felipe, you agree or disagree? right? Against the best team in the East. All right. LeBron at 34, but the Lakers lost to the Kings by 9. Damian Lillard's going to have abdomen surgery. He apparently suffered this injury while playing for Team USA in the offseason. And it's been lingering all year. He's going to miss 6 to 8 weeks. That's going to cover the trade deadline. I wonder, will somebody still acquire him while he's recovering from surgery?
Might be easier for Portland to do it this way. He is incredibly popular there. He is the Trailblazers. There's no doubt about this here. And it's going to be ugly when they trade him because he's such a fan favorite, but he's demanded the trade. I doubt he's the fan favorite he was a year ago because of how he's been treating this departure. But I think they'll move him while he's hurt, if you know what I mean, David.
They are, I think, 4-7 when he is not playing this year. NHL, usually they play close games, but the Bruins are just on such a roll. Brad Marchand with a hat trick, and Bruins beat the Canadiens 5-1. Home teams went 3-0 last night in the NHL. Dallas beat the Kraken 5-2, and despite getting outshot 46-18, the Coyotes edged the Maple Leafs 2-1. Tuukka Rask is going to make his season debut for the Bees tonight against the Flyers. So the Bruins are playing their best hockey, and they're getting their best goalie back. Major League Baseball players and owners are going to meet today. First time since December 2nd. The owners are expected to show up with a new proposal, which the players will immediately dismiss out of hand, and they may not talk again until the Super Bowl. PGA Tour, Hawaii, Honolulu, the Sony Open. Kevin Na, your defending champion. It gets underway today. And the ongoing saga that is Novak Djokovic in the Australian Open. Mark, did you see the latest?
I have to be frank with you, David. I missed it, but I really think we should be playing the theme music of Days of Our Lives underneath this every time we do a Joker update.
So the draw was supposed to take place 3:00 yesterday, Australian time. It was delayed about an hour and a half, which had people freaking out. Figured it was because of Djokovic. And maybe it was, maybe not. They decide to include him in the draw. He's facing a fellow Serb, all right, in the first round. That's number one. But literally after the draw was over, the people running the tournament said there's still a chance he will be deported.
Yeah, it's that whole line during his COVID time, right? That's what they're sticking their neck out on, that he lied about traveling during a 14-day quarantine, which he obviously did not quarantine himself. And now Australia thinks they have an out to throw him out of the country.
Yes, and he lied on his forms also. So he's lied to their face, and he's also lied on paper. Djokovic blamed his agent. And his
That's 2 strikes, but in tennis, it could be a double fault, David.
Well played, Mark. Well played. And, you only get 3 challenges a set. And how many challenges has Djokovic already used? And we may be 2-5 in the 5th right now.
I don't know if you caught the story. I doubt you listened to it. But I don't know if it's like the nightly news, but somebody let an expletive tirade go on Joker on the nightly news. And they're nominating the 2 of them for Australians of the Year.
I called him a total a-hole. They called him a sneaky a-hole.
There you go.
Right. And that's going to win him awards, which I do show where we are. And that, Mark, was the starting 5. Miller and Moulton. Great show lined up for you today. Stay with us here on the Florida Sports Network.
Well, I don't know for the life of me why I'm not hearing this stuff, but Colorado State's usually okay, Sonny, but I know they just got rid of their coach, so I doubt they'll be very good next year. if I can get some cats in here. I see that so I'm pretty impressed that the daughter now has already can completely control the PlayStation in ways that I have no idea you could do that. Because she's using it for Netflix, she's playing a game on it, and she's fast forwarding through her cartoons on Netflix. Like there's parts of, I don't know, we're into the Glitter Force right now is what we're watching. And when they transform into normal girls into the Glitter Force, it takes, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds and it's the same. And she says that's boring. So she literally just fast forwards through because you can do it with the joystick. I was so incredibly impressed. Why do you think I'm at home, Brown Chicken? There's some people in my home who have a little bit of the cocoa. I do not, for the record.
Yeah, PBR Coach K said he was sick. He wasn't positive for COVID, but he said he was sick the day before the game, and he said, "I'm not going to be there." So, and then yeah.
Oh, go ahead, David.
I was just going to say, and then they go on the road and have their most impressive conference win of the year.
So, Twitch people need a quick answer from you. If we are in the same studio and set up with cameras like this, would you prefer that to the wide shot of the whole room?
Yeah, great question.
Because it's really, you guys decide that, and I think I can pull this off. I found a couple of cameras in a drawer yesterday. It's a hell of a drawer. There's lavalier mics in there. I mean, there's so much good stuff in there. He's got old school earpieces in there. What do you call those? Something FB.
IFB.
There it is.
Yeah, that instead of setting up the big camera on the wide shot, that what we could do is set up these little cameras on each of us and do it this way. Mark has his own camera. I have my camera. We do split screen instead of one big shot.
So far, everybody's in favor of that. Now, what you need to do is get 10 more people to follow us each. I've got to get to 1,000 by the 4th of July.
We have made 383 bets over the years. All right. None of them apparently means as much to Mark as this one.
Oh, this is big. This is everything.
Whether or not we get to 1,000 followers on Twitch by the 4th of July. I will say that each side of the bet that we're on really does represent the both of us. Mark has always been glass half full about this show, while I have always been glass half
full. Always.
Okay. So it is fitting that I am betting against our popularity and success while Mark is betting on it. If Mark had a nickel for every time I was glass half empty, and he would just give me a look and say something to the effect of, "You are such a peach."
Steve, it would be awesome. That would require cameras, a setup, and an expense, like a budget. Right now, we're using Pat Kerwin's old cameras. I mean, that is a fact.
From CNN SI days, I think.
Oh, I thought no. These are when he tried to start that Pro Football Network thing.
I think some of this stuff even goes back before that.
I thought this was all. Wow, you could be right. I thought this was all. No, I don't pay Moulton for 10 followers. I will give David a referral fee out of my commission if anyone lists a home with me and says in the listing, how about that David Moulton trade kicker? I will literally give him a piece of my commission. I'm not joking either.
Oh, boy. We're going to have to do a semi-normal segment here time-wise. At least get off by like 13 because he's calling at 20. All right, so we're split now. It's like half and half.
Yeah, it's
individual shots are really close. Shots. Got it.
I will tell you the individual shots.
Top of the morning to you, top of the 7 o'clock hour to you. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network, the Florida Sports Network. Great show lined up for you. Kim Jones from the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg to join us in about 20 minutes' time. Bud Elliott, 24/7 Sports, to talk college football in a little over a half an hour. Roy Cummings to talk the Bucks in an hour. Matt Chatham to look ahead to the Patriots-Bills game in about 90 minutes' time. Feel free to text the show if you never have before. Send FSN Radio, all one word, to 21,000. FSN Radio to 21,000. And make sure that you not just watch the Miller and Moulton Twitch.tv channel, but you follow us, subscribe to us. Miller and Moulton have a high-stakes bet based on followers.
So I want to win. I just want to win.
Zach, we have made a lot of wagers over the years on and off air, and Mark has never, ever taken a bet more personally than he is taking this one as to how many followers we can get by the 4th of July.
As we discussed during the commercial break, out of the two of us, I am the one who is way more glass half full about the Miller and Moulton show.
Always has been. Always.
And we're now on the Florida Sports Network. We're syndicated. We're going to double in stations on Monday. We are very, as a group, David and I and Felipe and Marty, who runs this company, we are all very excited about the direction that the Florida Sports Network is going in. And yet, with all of that positive, or positivity going forward, David still is in that 770 studio that we started in 15 years ago. That was the size of a small closet, and I can't get him out of that.
Nope. I'm taking the under. Yep. That's how I roll.
So follow us. Follow us to freedom on Twitch TV.
Look at that. The Charlie Steiner reference. We should all wear, Dion saw the bandana that Charlie put on in that ESPN promo, which has got to be almost 30 years old now. And Dion looked at that bandana and said, that's a hell of a bandana right there. That's a do-rag right there.
All right, David, you gave us some pretty heavy numbers to start the show. I mean, looking at this weekend, when you have 1 point spread in double digits, another one that's over a touchdown, and one that's just under a touchdown, and then 3 that are around a field goal. David let us know off the top of the show that in the last 3 years, underdogs in Wild Card Weekend, there have been 14 games. They have been 8-6 straight up. They have been 10-4. Or I'm sorry, 11-3, right? 11-3 against the number. So that basically tells us that 4 of 6 games this week are going to be covered by the underdog.
At least. Yep. And at worst, you figure the underdogs will win straight up half of these games. At worst. Now, it's a 3-year trend. It's 2018, 2019, 2020. 2018, 2019, we only had 6 teams wild card weekend, so we only had 3 games. Now we're up to 4 games, 8 teams. So that's why you have the number of games that you have.
All right. Raiders or Patriots? Who do you give the better shot on Saturday?
Patriots, even though the Bills are the better team. Pat brought up something on Tuesday that I am a big believer in, Mark. First off, the Raiders have won 4 in a row. They've been in playoff mode for a month. they've had a couple of big road wins during that time. This is a short week for the Raiders. Remember, they played the overtime 4-hour game Sunday night. They're going to play the earliest playoff game possible mid-afternoon Saturday, and they're going to travel 2,000 miles to do it. I've already heard a couple of Raiders players give interviews this week in which they said, I'm exhausted. So I'm really concerned about, will the Raiders' legs, will they physically show up, quite frankly, or will Cincinnati, who rested half their team last week, will the Bengals just be a much fresher team?
Here's a fun little stat for you, David. Hunter Renfrow, who's tearing the league up this year, 103 receptions, 128 targets. Care to guess how many drops he's had this year?
2.
Very good, David. Not only do you win both showcases, you hit it exactly. 128 targets, 2 drops. 2. Because I'm looking at Jamar Chase right next to him. Same number of targets. He's had 11 drops. That seems pretty good. It's less than 10%. But it's not 2 in 128.
Right. I think Cooper Kupp's had 1. I think Kupp went the whole year with a drop, something like that. I mean, there are a couple of receivers out there. Who was it? Was it DeAndre had 1 drop this year? Now I know he missed some time, but I think DeAndre only had 1 drop as well. So I will say, Mark, it's a neat game, Raiders-Bengals, for lack of a better word. The Bengals, by the way, have never won a game outside of Cincinnati. They're like 5-5, I think, at home in playoff games, 0-7 on the road, and 0-2 in Super Bowls. So, I don't know if either one of these teams has a run in them. I think of the 2, I would bet it on Joe Burrow and the Bengals. And I've never thought this about anybody, Mark, in the last 40 years, but Joe Burrow reminds me of Joe Montana. I find him amazing. Sorry, Mark, amazing to watch.
I look at this game and I'm wondering, the Raiders will try to mix it up. I think one thing that's been overlooked this year by the Bengals, or of the Bengals, I should say, because we focus on Chase and Burrow and they've got a lot of weapons and they score. It is really difficult to run the football against the Cincinnati Bengals. They're a really good run defense. And I don't know how much weather is going to be a factor in this game, but if Vegas is unable to run the ball and it's going to be all Carr trying to hit Renfrow and trying to do things out the back, I like Cincinnati even more. I'm with you. If I were to pick one of the 2 upsets in this game, if we're going to try to pick half these games being upsets, I'd go with the Patriots out of the 2 games.
Buffalo offensively seems a little off right now. And for whatever reason, Josh Allen at home against the Patriots is a totally inferior quarterback than Josh Allen in New England. And remember, when they met this year, and granted, weather played a big role in the first game, but Josh Allen was amazing in the second game. Amazing. As good a performance by a quarterback as any quarterback had this year was Josh Allen in the game at Foxborough. And I think, unfortunately, they are such a one-man team that he's going to have a performance like that again. But remember, Mark, the last time the Patriots and the Bills played, the Bills did not punt. The only time in Belichick's long career that his opponent didn't have to send the punter onto the field once.
Well, I'm going to have a difficult time picking these games with what the information you gave me, because I did not see it this way at all. I didn't see this many upsets. And to sit there and tell me that there should be more upsets this weekend than chalk scares the hell out of someone who likes chalk.
Say this, though, as you mentioned, we got a 3-point spread and 2 4-point spreads. Would it really be crazy? And first off, this playoff wildcard weekend or super wildcard weekend doesn't have to go anything like the last 3. But, underdogs 8-6 the last 3 years, straight up wildcard weekend, 11-3 against the number. So in theory, we should maybe lean towards picking the road team and the underdog. Would it really shock you, Mark, if New England, San Francisco, and Arizona won this weekend?
No.
There are 4, 3, and 4-point underdogs on the road.
No, I think 2 of the 3. I was picking 2 of the 3. I mean, I think San Francisco could run the ball right all over the Dallas Cowboys. We've watched other teams do that. I think San Francisco right now is primed to take down the Dallas Cowboys.
I mean, Mark, when New England played in Buffalo in the regular season, they won. When Arizona played in Los Angeles in the regular season against the Rams, they won. I mean, we're only asking 2 of these teams to do what they've already done.
Now, I think Arizona's getting a little healthier at the right time. On the opposite side of this, the Rams are pretty banged up right now,
yes, they
especially
are.
on the defensive side of the ball.
Yes, they are. One point I do want to make going back to that Vegas-Cincinnati game, though, if you want to know why the Raiders made the playoffs this year as opposed to the last couple of years when they faltered big time down the stretch, the Raiders didn't have a pass rush the last 2 years. The Raiders have the best pass rush in the NFL without having to blitz. So they have been able to get pressure over 1/3 of the time, rushing just their 4 down linemen. And Joe Burrow was sacked 51 times this year, and he didn't play in the season finale. That, to me, Mark, is the game within the game. Can the Bengals pass protect? If they can, they're going to win.
And I think that also plays into how important Joe Mixon is in that game. I think the Burrow throwing for 4 touchdowns game doesn't happen. I think if Mixon has the game that has a bigger game, 120 and a touchdown, 100, I think that's the key to counter exactly what it is you're talking about, David.
And it's fitting that the Raiders and the Bengals, Mark, start Super Wildcard Weekend because both quarterbacks are playing in their first playoff games. And you've got Mac Jones in New England, Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, and you've got Kyler Murray in Arizona. All quarterbacks playing in their first career playoff games. So I think it's 4 of the 6 road teams have quarterbacks playing in their first playoff games. Las Vegas, New England, Philadelphia, and Arizona. Don't know if that means anything. It could just be a coincidence.
Miller and Moulton. You want to text the show? It's very simple. Text FSN Radio to 21,000. FSN Radio to 21,000. That's all one word. You can follow us on Twitter, that Mark Miller for me, the David Moulton for David. And of course, you can join us on twitch.tv/Miller and Moulton, where the show never ends, not even during the commercial breaks. When
Kim
we come
Green,
back,
I'm sorry, Mark.
Oh, not a problem. We're in 2 different places. This happens from time to time. I'm at the homestead today, David in the studio, but we will be joined by Kim Green. He is the CEO of the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. Coming to St. Petersburg in February, we will be in St. Petersburg for the race in late February as well. We'll talk to Kim on the other side. Thank you so much for listening to Miller and Moulton right here on the Florida Sports Network. graphics and everything today.
Yes. Calling us at 7:20, and we have to be done before 7:30 or no later than 7:30. Well, in theory, right as we're coming back from break, the phone's going to ring. I mean, it was, I told them 7:18, and we're supposed to come back at about 7:20. So,
we have a number for him too. Hang on, just in case, because I got that as well. Hang on, stand by. And Felipe, there's definitely something not pushed that I can't hear you, because I can't hear the spots either.
Well, it doesn't make sense because when I'm on the road on StreamYard, I hear everything.
And we're hooked up the exact same way, David.
Right. So, listen, no one associated with the show has COVID.
No one associated with our show has COVID.
This is kind of like the NFL. Sometimes people take a day or two because they've been around somebody who got sick. That's all we're doing here.
I'm doing it for David. This is really and truly. I do not have COVID. I've got close to someone who has, and I'm not going to let him miss a game for being stupid. That's all this is.
And
he's more. He was shocked that I was doing this.
Yeah, I said to him, "No, we're good." And Mark said, "No, you know what? I'll just do the last 2 shows this week at home. I'll be back Monday." I went, "Oh, okay." So.
They're doing a night race, David.
Who is?
There's like 9 gazillion races at this St. Pete Grand Prix.
Right.
The Friday race is part of the. This week the weekend schedule highlighted by the NTT IndyCar Series opening race. The Indy's future stars will battle in the Indy Lights series.
Right.
So I think that's Friday night. I want to at least ask about that.
Right.
Going to be on NBC noon Sunday.
No, we're talking about the race.
Yeah, my biggest problem is if I get tickets for it, I don't know if I want to come back Friday after the show and drive back to St. Pete on Sunday. But I would like to, depending on what kind of access they're going to give us, that may happen. Because as an adult, I've never been up close to any sort of race. Just let me know when we're getting close, David.
"20 minutes past the hour. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network, the Florida Sports Network. Bud Elliott, 24/7 Sports, scheduled to join us in about 15 minutes' time. Roy Cummings, live from Tampa, top of the hour. So we begin to look ahead to the NFL playoffs. On your level of concern meter, Mark, for the Bucks this weekend, 10 would be a lot of concern. 1, not so much. Where are you?
I would be at about 3. About the 3 to 4 scale. I mean, I think this could be a game for a half. And Tampa's struggled in the first halves lately. They've not gotten off to great starts. The weather could be a factor in this game. But all in all, I would say about a 3.
These two teams met earlier in the season, week 6 in Philly. It was a Thursday night game. The game was not as close as the final score. Tampa had a 3-score lead mid-fourth quarter. Eagles able to put a couple of scores on the board, and I think it ended up being a 6-point finale. But Tampa controlled the game. I will say that was when the Eagles got off to their 2-5 start. Obviously, a very different team. They went 7-3 the rest of the year. Bruce Arians was doing a round of interviews yesterday, and he was saying the same thing, Mark. We're facing a very different, much improved team than we did earlier in the season.
And they have a quarterback that moves around. And anytime you have a quarterback that is agile, it can cause problems for a defense. And that's the one thing I look at in this game is I don't think he's great, but he can cause problems for a defense.
We'll get back to the NFL and to football in a moment. We're catching up with Kim Green, CEO of the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, where individual tickets have gone on sale this week. Kim, it's David and Mark once again. A belated Happy New Year. How are you? If you're interested, by the way, in tickets, gpstpete.com. You can go online, gpstpete.com. Kim, you've been involved in IndyCar racing for a long time. And I will say, since we last talked, there have been a couple of, icons in the sport that have passed away. And I know that you worked with a few of them. Just wondering if you had a story or two for us. Yep. Yes, you are. Kim Green, CEO of the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. It's the final weekend of February, and Miller and Moulton plan on being live from the race. 3 days of racing, the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Mark and I were noticing it looks like you've jammed in 2 more races, and isn't one of them a night race? Okay. Right. Well, and that's when we will be there broadcasting live on Friday, the 25th, and the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg the weekend. It goes all the way through Sunday, the 27th. If you're interested, go to gpstpete.com for tickets. Kim, thanks for making time for us. Can't wait to see you. Best of luck between now and then. Kim Green, CEO of the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, final weekend of February. It is the weekend after Daytona, and it is right before, I believe, 24 Hours of Sebring. If you are a racing fan, it is lined up for you. And then Homestead's not that far away. And then you've got the F1 race, Mark, in Miami. So, I mean, there's a 12-week stretch there, I believe, of 5 major races here in Florida between all the racing series.
Should be a great week. I mean, a great month. Like you said, this is one of those things. If you're into the racing between what's going on here, and I know Mother's Day, the F1 race, that still has David all upset, but
very upset. Unbelievable.
We'll get through it.
What are they thinking? Come on. Racing on Mother's Day weekend, trying to get the casual fan. I would have been all over it. Unlimited budget for me, Mark. That would have been serious. I'm not playing around. That would have been the weekend that it would have been, you know what? I'm calling in my Father's Day chips early. So instead,
I love your attitude, David. I really do.
So instead, I'm probably going to do it at the, Grand Prix of St. Petersburg instead. That'll be the closest I get this year, and that'll be good. I haven't done an IndyCar race in 30 years. So and I haven't done an IndyCar race on a road course in that long as well. So that'll be different throughout the streets of downtown St. Petersburg, Miller and Moulton. Back to football, ladies and gentlemen. Bud Elliott, 24/7 Sports, Nolecast. He will join us next. Miller and Moulton, Florida Sports Network.
Ay, ay, ay. Yeah, we know you guys couldn't hear. I couldn't hear it either. That's why he did the interview by himself. Everything on the radio worked fine.
Well, hey, don't worry. You forget us talking here. You just, if you can fix it, fix it.
But I've got to be able to hear I mean, it would be nice to be able to hear the guests.
Right.
Because we've got 3 more interviews coming up.
Can you hear them, Mark?
No.
Okay. But did you send a link to Bud?
I did. I just sent it. I just texted him.
That's fine. By the way, don't be afraid to speak up over there, just in case if you push something and your guys are talking, Mark will hear it. I mean, don't curse, but you know what I mean. And what's weird, Raj, is that when we're set up and I'm on the road, okay, doing StreamYard, I hear everything.
I can't seem to figure it out.
Is it possible in any way, shape, or form, since we were set up through StreamYard here, that something needs to be changed here?
Morning, guys. I don't know why. I can't figure out why you can't hear everything, because every button was pushed on the network computer.
Okay. Mark,
did you hear? Is both microphones hot in that room?
No, only mine is.
Okay, because when he was talking, I heard it so vividly.
Every single button was pushed on and that's what feeds you. Every button was pushed, including the one that feeds you.
Bud, can you do me a favor? Just count to 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mark, can you hear Bud?
Well, yeah, but he's on the computer.
Okay, I'm just asking.
No, it's what I'm not getting is the feed from the radio station.
Right, Mark's not getting the feed from the radio station.
That should be coming down there. Whatever, maybe in the back of the StreamYard computers. Is everything plugged in to the back?
The buttons are pushed that
guys.
For you, I don't.
David.
Yeah.
Is everything plugged in? Is something somehow in the computer that your camera's plugged into?
Hold on a second. Here.
Okay.
Just
Raj.
Hey.
Check that computer that David's camera's plugged in, the one that I use. Just make sure in the back of that computer everything's plugged in. Maybe something got pulled out. That's the only. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Just see if something got pulled out the back. That could be the only thing.
Okay, hang on. Let's see.
The one that's got that USB. Oh, he's not listening, but
everything. Oh wait. What is that white thing? Let's see. I don't know if that white thing is anything. Let me see. I don't know what where this would. Yeah, this doesn't even fit into here. So this is the only thing I see on that could be unplugged.
Yeah, that looks like it would go into a computer.
Let me see here. It doesn't fit.
Yeah, that's an Ethernet cable.
Does he need that?
There's nothing. No.
Okay.
No.
So
everything's plugged
here,
in.
So I don't. Let me check the power supply.
Bud, where are you?
I'm actually in a Town Place Suites in Orlando because after the convention, which is basically just go get wasted with coaches, the wife wants me to quarantine for a day.
I'll text Richard and see what his deal is here.
Okay.
I was not going to do it, but
what?
Back in 30.
Okay. We're back in 30. Raj is going to reach out and text Richard and see if they can get an answer by the top of the hour. Bud, Mark is at home doing what you're doing, just playing it safe. And for some reason, when I'm on the road, it works. And Mark can't hear this station. So that's what we're trying to fix.
So what I'll do is I'll summarize David's question before each answer.
No. I can hear you fine. I can hear David.
No, but I'm saying if you can't hear David, you don't know what he asked me.
No, I can hear David. I can't hear the commercials.
Oh, got it. Okay.
24 minutes before the hour. Thanks so much for being with us. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network, the Florida Sports Network. Bud Elliott, he of 24/7 Sports and Oldcast, about 14 other things. He's kind enough to join us once again. You can follow him on Twitter at Bud Elliott3, Bud Elliott3. Top of the morning to you, Bud. How are you?
Guys, I'm doing well. Recovering from the convention, which is essentially gathering information from coaches in an informal setting and kind of setting up our editorial calendar for the year, and drinking a cup of pops and just having a good time watching the college football national championship.
All right. Is there anything that you can give us that you learned without naming names? You're around all these people. What, whether it's NIL, whether it's transfer portal, what was the biggest thing? As you're speaking to a lot of coaches, you don't have to get into detail of which guy said it, but were there some overlaying concerns that seem to be uniform of all of them?
Certainly. And so I actually got one guy, makes close to $10 million for about 45 minutes, and I've known him for a while, and he's on one of the committees, and I asked him, I said, all right, what's everybody going to holler about, and what can you actually get past? And he's like, well, you asked it. That's right. So they're going to holler a lot about transfer portal. You're going to hear that coming out of the convention because they have the NCAA Constitutional Convention coming up next week. They're going to talk a little about early signing period. And they're also going to talk about NIL, as you mentioned. So with the transfer portal, all the coaches pretty much agree that it is an absolute blank show, right? They do not like having to visit a recruit on the road in the very rare circumstance that you're actually able to go in home now, which is like a 2-week period in December, and then have to worry about flying back to campus to kind of settle a situation where a kid might be wanting to jump into the transfer portal. So what the coaches want is basically a transfer window where these are the designated times that you are allowed to transfer. And other than that, you can't just jump into the portal and leave whenever you want. And then he said, but we're not going to get that passed, I don't think, because anything that looks like a restriction on the athlete is probably not going to fly in 2022. And I think I've used a lot on you guys' show before. Putting non-competes on people that you're very stridently claiming are not employees is not always the best idea if you want to avoid lawsuits.
Yeah, but Bud, I mean, they already have a window in which you can commit as a recruit. Yes. I mean, those of us have argued that a kid should be able to sign his letter of intent at any point in time during the year, but now they limit it to mid-December to the first Wednesday in February. That's it. So since they're already limiting when it is you can commit to a school, why can't they then limit it as to when you could leave a school?
So the high schoolers they're not college athletes already, right? So it's sort of, why does MLB screw over the players who are not yet part of the union? Now that's, largely because the union will do that. It's a little bit different here. And I totally get your point on that, by the way. That's just what I was told. Like, they think it's going to be hard to get the window passed.
Okay.
Now, they might get early signing period changed. This is something that he said, we may be able to get this done. I was talking to him. I brought up the fact that I think this is largely the cause for all these firings happening so early. Before the early signing period, absent like pretty gross misconduct, we did not have college football coaches fired in late September and early October. It wasn't a thing. You played out the season, then you did your coaching search. But because of the early signing period window, everything has been pushed up so much. Now, it seems like common sense to move this back. However, I was told this. There's enough coaches out there who do not want to babysit their mid-year enrollees over Christmas. They want to have their Christmas holiday basically free of recruiting. You're signed. If you're not, we know we got to do some work on you, come the later period. So this is going to largely come down to how much work are these guys willing to do in order to kind of make the sport and its sports calendar a little bit less messed up. But the coach I spoke with on that, this is a guy who usually shoots me straight. I'm like, what can you actually get past, right? Everybody can holler about stuff, but if you don't have the votes for it, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of like Congress. He said, we may be able to get early signing period thing passed. And I asked him about Nick Saban's comments as well about the NIL. Saban called for some kind of regulation and national standard. And again, he's like, how do we do this in a way that doesn't restrict the athlete or appear to restrict the athlete? Because again, I don't know how much we can get past in 2022 with sort of that standard in mind. He said, but what I would like to see, if we can, which I think he's wrong on this, but I'll explain that in a second. He said, look, I would like to see uniform rules for how much the schools can be involved state to state, because obviously Florida is a pretty restrictive rule, and this guy doesn't coach in Florida, but and other states are pretty wide open as far as how much coaches can be involved in NIL and how much the school can be involved in setting stuff up. So there, it's not really let's restrict how much the athletes can make. They may be able to get some headway made on how much can schools be involved in NIL, but that would likely take Congress to act, not just the coaches and the NCAA voting. And there's only 4 weeks left of Congress right now. So I don't know they're really going to take that up. They seem to be spending some time on some other things right now.
Right. And they're happy with the result they got. So why would they want to then go back and revisit something that they already are comfortable with to basically appease the NCAA, who kicked the can down the road and should have done this themselves all along, and we're all aware of that. But I do want to ask you, you've got and I know there are more models right now, but I keep focusing on the Kentucky and the Texas model, kind of the 501(c)(3) billionaire boosters, high millionaire boosters are throwing a bunch of money, and they can pay people out off of that. Then you have the Gator Collective, which is access for people essentially like us if we weren't in this business. Middle income to lower income people that can spend their $20 a month to get access that a normal Gator fan wouldn't get. I love this model simply because it involves the whole fan base. It means that, Mark Miller can be a part of getting this guy signed. And I think that makes every booster feel really, really good about it. Which model's best, or can they both work really well, Bud?
So if it's legal, the Texas model is best. But pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. And I'm not really sure that somebody won't look at the Texas model. And I'm not a tax attorney, but I have heard this from people like Matt Brown, who runs the Extra Points newsletter, just a guy that absolutely geeks out on everything NCAA legislation and all kinds of the non-on-field parts of the sport. And I was talking to him yesterday in the airport. And he's like, dude, this is going to get out of control, and it's not the NCAA that's going to step in. It's going to be the IRS. They're going to say, this is not a charity, right? And there's going to be some problems. I think Florida's model is more sustainable than that. If they can pull that off, there's no doubt that just going to your millionaire and billionaire boosters and saying, hey, this is a charity.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right. I actually think, Bud, and I'm way more big picture than just college football on this one. 501(c)(3)s are a sham. They're an absolute sham. This could be the opening that the government needs to really get involved. I mean, the fact that you've got the Sugar Bowl CEO making $700,000 a year under the guidance of a 501(c)(3) is an absolute joke.
It is. And look, here's the thing. If they take a long time to act on that with what Texas is doing and what some other schools are doing with the charity aspect, what do they care? Fine might be kind of minimal, and you've already done it. It already worked. You already got the players in. So, yeah, I think the middle ground here is sham businesses where you can write off the losses, right? But they're not actually charity. So it's a little bit different tax implications.
He's Bud Elliott, 24/7 Sports, Nolecast, the Cover 3 podcast. Follow him on Twitter at Bud Elliott 3. That's Bud Elliott and the number 3. Mark has mentioned it before. I'm a big fan as well. You guys have a transfer page, if you will, at 24/7 Sports. You keep track of it, I think, better than anyone else out there. You also have your transfer rankings. Then you incorporate it into your overall recruiting, because when you think about it, it's really player acquisition. There's multiple ways now to do it. But it's been a couple weeks. Who's crushing it in the transfer portal?
So in the transfer portal, I'm really more of at the top level of the sport, a quality over quantity guy, right? However, I mean, there are some schools out there that are really crushing it with some mixture. USF right now has 14 transfers committed. They went really heavy on the portal. I like what UCF is doing as well. Now, obviously, Terrence Lewis has problems. There's no doubt, but he was a 5-star level athlete who got a little banged up at Maryland, and, we'll see if they can get him straight. I love the John Reese Plumlee take for UCF, quite frankly. Like, I like Gus going back to his roots and saying, I'm not going to try to have a bunch of throwing quarterbacks here. I'm a native wing T guy. Basically, every time at Auburn that they had a running quarterback, they overachieved. And every time they tried to pull a Sean White or anything like that, they were not as good. Their best team had a corner from Georgia. Remember Nick Marshall, right? Was a cornerback from Georgia who transferred over, and they had him run that thing, and they almost beat FSU in the national title. Speaking of FSU, I think they've done a pretty good job. Some of the receivers I'm skeptical about, but they're attacking that more with a volume approach. They got Jared Verse, the defensive end from Albany. They were not on him early as far as contact, of course, because that would be tampering, but they were aware of him early because when he was playing for Albany, he tore up Syracuse early in the season, and they played Syracuse shortly thereafter. So basically, he kept popping up on their self-scout of the Syracuse game. They've done a pretty good job. And then we'll have to see, obviously, Washington State getting Cam Ward from Incarnate Word, who I think could be pretty damn good up there. Oklahoma getting Dylan Gabriel and losing Cam Williams, that's probably a downgrade, but maybe not a huge one, especially in Jeff Levy's system, who he gets to reunite with. And we'll see where the top prize goes, right? Does he end up going to USC?
That is the big question. And as David mentioned, 24/7 Sports, their recruiting stuff, their transfer rankings, as good as anything out there. If you're wanting to follow who the players are, where they're going, where they came from, and what's going on, it is a daily visit, at least once a day for me. The Big Ten, rumors are out there, or words out there, that the reason we don't have a new playoff is that Kevin Warren, the Big Ten commissioners, dug his heels in the sand and said that the Power 5 conference champs all have to get in no matter what. This seems damn near asinine if this is the actual reason as to what's holding up. Is there more to this than just that, Bud?
So I don't have as good a Big Ten sources, but I tell you what, if you're the ACC, you love Kevin Warren right now because you are definitely one of the real reasons that this is getting held up. You want to go to 8 to preserve any kind of leverage you might possibly have to get Notre Dame to join. You realize you're kind of getting screwed by this contract that you currently have with ESPN. And so you need some kind of huge event to make ESPN renegotiate before the 2035 season. Otherwise, you're just going to get left behind as far as revenue. So if you're the ACC, you're trying to throw Hail Marys here and dig your heels in. And it's great for them to have a partner right now in Kevin Warren. Obviously, I don't really understand Kevin Warren's motivations for that. It's tough for me to imagine scenarios in which the Big Ten champion would be left out in a playoff scenario like they've been discussing. And then you have George Klaikoff at the Pac-12, who is just very new to this. And in talking to people who were there in Indianapolis, obviously I was in San Antonio for the convention. They thought it's going to be very interesting because most likely next week at the convention, they're going to vote to give more of the power to the Power 5 commissioners and less to the NCAA and NCAA president. But he's like, these guys are not really working together right now. A lot of it's because they're very new and they don't they're having to deal with all their presidents. They're still learning this. This is kind of a mess right now, I guess.
Well, but here's what fascinates me. Let's look. I mean, clearly they're not going to all 11 be able to agree on anything. I mean, right now they seem to be about as close as the Major League Baseball players and owners are, in which both want the DH and yet won't agree to it. But let's go forward 4 years. Say we have status quo for the next 4 years, which it looks like we're going to have. My understanding is it only takes 6 votes in 4 years to be able to get stuff done. You need unanimous voting now to change the existing contract. You only need majority voting to have a new system. So to me, if there are 3 clicks, and let's just say they're like 4, 4, and 3, well, it's basically a matter of which click can get another one to join them, block voting, and you'll get the system that you want. And to me, the danger for the alliance between the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the ACC is Sankey gets the votes. And if I had to bet on anybody in the room getting the votes, it would be the other conferences siding with the SEC, because the Sankey wants this top 6 conference champions making the playoff. Well, how's he not going to get the American and the Mountain West and the MAC and all that to not side with him? So to me, I think it may be short term you're winning, but to me, Bud, 4 years from now, basically, Greg Sankey could take over as commissioner of college football and get whatever he wants and probably do it at the expense of that alliance.
I don't disagree with you on that at all. I just think right now, like they're saying, hey, we'd rather have that result in 4 years than have that result right now, because if we have it right now, it's going to cost us leverage.
All right, Bud, we had a poll question a couple of days on our show, a couple of days ago, and I
love y'all's poll questions.
I want to ask you what the coaches would think of this poll question, because we asked what the biggest problem you have with college football today. We gave 4 answers. For the record, everything is fine, 1, but it didn't win by majority vote. The other 3 were the portal, NIL, or SEC dominance. What do you gauge as the biggest problem in college football today?
So the coaches by far would say portal. They like to think that once they got a kid signed out of high school, they don't have to, like, I don't want to paint them in a light that says like they don't care about the kids, but they don't want to have to worry about their guys leaving. They just want to be able to count on that kid for 4 years. And so I think by far they would say the portal. Like none of them like it privately, for sure, except they all use it. So I just definitely think that they don't like how it operates.
We like how Bud Elliott operates, 24/7 Sports, NoCast, Cover 3 Podcast. Follow him on Twitter, Bud Elliott 3, Bud Elliott 3. Bud, how about this? Let's check in on the Thursday after the second signing date, and we'll wrap it all up.
I like that. Awesome.
Bud Elliott. Thanks, Bud. Appreciate it. Joining us here on Miller and Moulton. Roy Cummings to join us coming up at the top of the hour as Miller and Moulton are looking ahead to Super Wild Card Weekend this weekend. Bucks, of course, hosting the Eagles in the early game on Sunday. Bucks an 8.5-point favorite. Second biggest favorite on the board behind the Chiefs, a 12.5-point favorite against the Steelers. We gave out a stat earlier. Last 3 wild card weekends, underdogs are 8-6 straight up, 11-3 against the spread. Make your picks accordingly. Roy Cummings next, Miller and Moulton.
That is correct. Whoa. Let's calm down over here, everybody. All right. You there, David?
I am.
I'm just going to do for a poll question. Wild card underdogs are 6-0 straight up and 11-3 against the number. Out of the 6 wild card games, how many dogs will win outright?
Okay. Yeah. I don't think Mark could hear you, Felipe. Okay. Well. Okay. Yeah. I mean, Mark, I'm fine with that.
I saw yours. We'll use yours tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
I saw it after I already typed it and hit send. Sorry. Once you said okay, I hit send.
Well, I actually think we could use yours until 4:00 Saturday. You know what I mean?
Yep. Problem is, I just
oh, got it. Okay.
I don't know if I can edit it. Yeah, I like that one for tomorrow because I think San Francisco. Hell, I think there's that could be as even of a vote as we've ever had.
Well, the other thing is,
So
Mark,
I haven't heard back from Richard, but I think I can't fix it yet, but pretty sure I know what the problem is.
Okay.
Sheeman has COVID. He's been doing the afternoon show from home, so I don't know.
So you think something has been changed here?
That's what I'm thinking. So I had him text Chris. I don't know if he's heard back, but that's got to be the culprit. I'm pretty sure.
So we think something got changed to accommodate.
I actually think it could be what we had changed too. I mean, we've had some stuff done in there for what we're doing. So I think it's a Richard question.
The producer.
Okay, and Mark thinks since we've done some changes and added some equipment that he thinks it could be something we changed.
Oh,
and that Richard might be the answer.
Okay, I texted him.
Right.
I'll follow up and see what I can do.
I'll tell you what. Thank God we've got him around too.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, do you want to try this where you know my question, and I could just, problem is there's like a couple second delay.
The problem is that I've always listened to the answer to form my question.
No, I know.
I don't play this. I have a question written down.
No, I know.
The only thing we could do is I could start with the question and then just sit the blank out. But either that or I was going to go make a piece of toast.
Well,
come on, that's a little funny.
I like that. I mean,
so I would just sit here and eat the toast while you're doing the interview.
God, that'd be great. That would be tremendous. Every 30 seconds, crunch, crunch, crunch. Okay.
Wow, that's a great question, Mr. Boutte.
So you want to try this or?
Yeah, I'll ask the first one, and then I'll just kind of back out, David.
Top of our 8 o'clock hour, final hour for those of you in Tampa, St. Pete, halfway home. For those of you in the 239, Miller and Moulton on the Florida Sports Network, the Florida Sports Network. It is a pleasure to welcome back longtime friend of the show. Going to try to run into him this weekend. Roy Cummings, Bucks Insider for PewterPirates.com, PewterPirates.com. You can follow Roy on Twitter, rcummingsfh. CN. Roy, hope you're doing well. How are you? Well, we are doing fine. Thank you.
Roy, when you look at this game against the Eagles, obviously they played earlier in the season. It's a very different Eagles team. What is the biggest concern that you have that Philadelphia brings to the table against the Bucks?
And Mark, unfortunately, the technical issue or two that I think we have, I don't think Roy heard you.
Well, there you have it. So I'm going to go make some toast.
Right. Sorry about that, Roy, while Mark goes and makes breakfast from home. Mark asked you basically, these teams met in week 6 and, just how different are both teams really now, second time around? Eagles average 160 yards rushing a game. Think about it. That's 40 yards a quarter. Roy, can a rushing team beat Tampa Bay? I mean, let's face it. The last couple of years, teams haven't even tried in many cases to run the ball because they think it's impossible. Philly not only has to try, they have to succeed. Well, They have to stay in the game so that therefore they could continue to run it. But the Bucks can be very explosive offensively. But the biggest concern, I believe, Roy, for Tampa Bay is just who's going to be playing. I mean, who's healthy? I've been paying attention as you have to the practice reports, who's practicing and to what extent. There's 6-8 players we could talk about here, Roy. Who do we think is going to miss this game still? Well, and Roy, you touched on something. If we go back to last year, the Bucks only had one injury concern. It was Vita Vea. They did not rush him back for the playoff opener at Washington. They determined he would be ready for a divisional round. And he was, impactful, but he was really impactful by the NFC Championship game. And that's what I'm wondering. If you're the Bucks, I mean, you are getting the 7 seed. You're getting a team that's 0-6 against playoff teams, a team that you handled much easier than the final score in week 6. Can you play the game in which, whether it's Levante David or it's JPP or what have you, it's, Lenny, and you go, you know what, guys, we're saving you for January 23rd. Roy, I don't know if it's a huge factor this week, but I think that I don't want to say that this is a dress rehearsal but the Bucks, I think, get their starting secondary back for the first time since the opener this week. And they may not need it as much against Hurts and the Eagles, but they're certainly going to need it if they're going to run the table. He's Roy Cummings. He's our Bucks Insider. He's the Bucks Insider for pewterpirates.com, pewterpirates.com. Follow him on Twitter, rcummingsfhcn. Roy, hope to see you Sunday. It's going to be windy and rainy. Dress for it. Roy Cummings, kind enough to join us once again here on Miller and Molten. Rainy, windy, 70. That's the forecast, Mark. Don't know. I will say if I'm an Eagles fan, I think I like that forecast because let's muddy it up. Maybe it slows the Bucks passing game down a touch, and maybe it helps us run the ball a little more.
Well, there you go. I think it helps your quarterback run the ball, David. I don't think it slows the passing game down because I think we figured out one thing. Quarterbacks can all throw it in the rain, and the offense knows where they're going and the defense doesn't. But I think that's going to help the Eagles just as much as it helps the Bucks for how they run their offense, David, if that's the case.
It's the 1:00 game on Sunday, the third of 6 playoff games on Super Wild Card Weekend. It's the Eagles and the Bucks. Roy Cummings joining us here on Miller and Molten, courtesy of the Florida Sports Network.
Yeah, everybody in Twitch, we are having, for whatever reason, the feed that comes back through the computer is not working. And I have no idea why. And for the person who said turn it off and turn it on again, it's a hell of an idea. But if David turns the computer off and turns it on again, that means he's got to get us set up again. And I don't have the faith in that happening. Not in a 3-minute break or 7-minute break. Not worth it. We'll get through it today.
Were you trying to talk to me there?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Got it.
I was talking to the Twitchers.
Got it.
Because they can hear me just the same way they can hear you. When you're on, I will say this, when you're on location, they can hear you during that first, minute and a half, whatever that first part of the break is. When we're in studio, because you're going directly to them, if you know what I mean.
Gotcha.
And then you're going out to the radio, if that makes sense to you.
Interesting.
Do you just keep changing your name, Debbie? You're starting to mess with me now. Noreen, Debbie, Mello. Come on now. Yeah, I was going to say, if you're here now, if you're leaving off of this, then I'd be, that's a hell of a point, Arch. Will say made the daughter breakfast during that last interview.
Well, that came in handy.
Yogurt, piece of toast, some orange juice.
Somebody has to.
Got her eating rye bread now. No seeds. I like the seeds better.
I'm with you.
But if I can get the daughter, I've got more rye flour than I know what to do with. Making another loaf today, in case anybody was wondering. Maybe I can start selling bread on the side for money. Selling bread for bread.
Wow.
I've got a bread maker, Arch, so everything is off of that. It's basically 3 cups flour, 1 cup water. I've got a small old one, Arch, but there is a website, breaddad.com. Dude's got great recipes, man.
Felipe likes how you refer to everybody, the wife, the daughter, the dog.
Yeah. Well, You know what's an interesting word to try to explain to a 7-year-old? Asymptomatic.
Honey, it's all about germs. You're going to learn about it very soon in science class.
Boy, you have no idea how right you are on that. You think the difference just between, our kids and this one, of how quickly they are learning things. Johnny, I've not made sourdough because you got to buy the starter, and I've yet to buy the starter kit. That's pretty funny, Hobbs. That's really funny.
Baking show while baked.
Well played there, Hobbs.
Wait,
that's really well played.
I didn't realize I'm doing the show with Snoop.
No, you're never doing the show with Snoop. Never, ever, 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 ever. Now, 10:02.
Anything's possible. Yeah. One minute, Mark.
Yeah, good stuff, Arch. Really and truly. I always look at recipes and then do my own, but I've used a lot of his stuff. The problem with me is that I've got a 1 pound bread maker, and most of his recipes are for 1.5 pound or 2 pound bread makers.
It's a problem I run into.
If I made you a loaf of rye, would you eat it?
The whole loaf. The whole loaf.
You wouldn't give any to your wife?
Not a piece.
I'm going to bring you a loaf of bread on Monday.
I'd eat it in front of her.
If you promise that, I'm definitely bringing you a loaf of bread on Monday.
Ten seconds. $20 minutes past the hour. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network. The Florida Sports Network. Matt Chatham played for the Patriots, covers the Patriots. He will join us in 15 minutes or so as we take our first look at the Bills-Patriots playoff game in Buffalo, the night game Saturday. Apparently it's going to be like 2 degrees at kickoff. So think about the 2 games that were played in Orchard Park this year. You had the damn near nor'easter they played in the first time, and now you're going to have, just frigid Buffalo playoff conditions.
Well, we had a pretty mild hurricane season in Florida. We had 3 rain with names basically all year.
Yeah, we got lucky. There were a lot of named storms, and most of them missed us.
But even what we ended up with was rain with a name. I think 3 times, 3 tropical storms. That weather for the first Buffalo New England game was far worse than any storm we experienced in Florida this summer. Any. Not even close. What's her name? Susie?
Colbert.
Nearly got blown off her damn chair.
So did Schefter. Yeah.
It was some of the most insane pregame TV I think we've ever seen. And now we're going to get 2 degrees for the third meeting between these 2 teams.
Buffalo winning the division by a game. The big game was the rematch in Foxborough when Josh Allen was magnificent. The Bills never punted. So what kind of a game are we going to get? New England obviously ran it right down Buffalo's throat the first time, and then Josh Allen threw it all over the Patriots and ran it all over, for that matter, the second time. There was nothing that Belichick and company took away from them. So what kind of a game will we get the third meeting? And we've got we've got 2 third meetings this year, New England and Buffalo, and Arizona and the Rams. And the road team won on the road the first time in both occasions.
We've got a poll question up based on these numbers. Wildcard underdogs, there's 8-6 straight up and 11-3 against the number in the last 3 years. Out of the 6 wildcard games, how many underdogs will win outright? 0, 1, 2, 3, or more. Right now, the majority of you think it will be 2. When the answer you should give based on history is 3 or more. But 71% of you say 2, 14% roughly are saying the other 2, and 0 for 0. Probably shouldn't even have had that up there.
Probably not. Probably should have put 1 or less, but that's all right. I'm going with 3 or more. I'm going to play the percentages. I'm also going to go with the fact that we've talked about it all year. Home field does not mean much. I mean, what home teams won 9 more games than road teams did this year. When you incorporate the tie, that's how you get the odd number. 9 more games, that's it.
Which number, David, surprises you the most as far as, and I know not everybody's into point spreads, but I do think they're relevant in terms of what Vegas thinks. They're not wrong often. I was the most surprised that Dallas and San Francisco wasn't closer to a pick'em. I really and truly was. We've watched teams that can run the ball beat Dallas, and yet Dallas is a 3-point favorite in this game. I don't know if that's simply because the betting public loves the Dallas Cowboys.
That's so funny. You and I see that game differently. I thought that line was going to be bigger. That was actually my surprise, was how early the line got that small. I thought it was going to open up kind of where the Bengals Raiders are now. I thought it was going to open up in the 5 to 6 range. I mean, they almost missed the playoffs. And apparently Jimmy G is just god awful. That's all we've heard for the last 2 years. And everybody loves Dak. So I thought it was going to open, Mark, at like 5.5 and get bet down to where it is.
And I guess we're on the opposite sides of that because, as you say, everybody says how bad Jimmy G is. Can you tell me about all these Cowboy playoff wins that we've experienced recently that give us confidence in this Dallas Cowboy team? Now, you've pointed out for a while, they're very good defensively, maybe the best Dallas defense we've seen in quite a while. Their offensive line has underperformed in my estimation. If there's any one area of their team that you can look at and go, that's interesting. And Dak's underperformed in my estimation. But the O-line and Dak have underperformed. Their D's been above average. I still think San Francisco can run the football on them and run it right through them if they want to.
Well, Denver did about 5 weeks ago. They just lined up and absolutely humiliated them. Here's what would concern me specifically, and I don't want to get 2 X's and O's, but Arizona's not a good running team, at least not by the end of the year. But when they had to put a drive together to run out the clock, they ran plays similar to what the Niners run. Now, they got Kyler Murray on the perimeter. Now, the Niners aren't going to do it with Jimmy G, but Shanahan loves to run those wide receiver sweeps and those, 2 running back sweeps to either side. And Dallas didn't have an answer for Arizona running to the perimeter when the game was on the line. And Mark, to me, this game is really simple. Dallas has to just slow down a little bit San Francisco's running game. And there have been times this year, Mark, where teams have lined it up and run it right down their throat.
See, and part of slowing down San Francisco's running game means you have to run the ball too. And I don't know if Dallas will be able to run the ball on San Francisco.
Part of that is the offensive coordinator, I believe, has a little Andy Reid in him. Kellen Moore can get really pass happy. And I'm with you. You know me, run the damn ball. I think it would really help. The Niners play a lot of zone. They very rarely blitz. They very rarely go man-to-man. Dallas, with just a little bit of a running game, has an explosive passing game. They really should know, Mark, where the Niners defenders are going to be at almost all times. And so if you're right, if they can run it a little bit, they should actually do really well.
if they can run it a little bit. Because if they can't run it a little bit, and I know what you're saying from a passing standpoint, but the Niners have a decent pass rush. They're going to be able to get to Dak from time to time. It doesn't mean that Dallas doesn't score in the high 20s. I don't know if that's enough to win if you run it down their throat. So you and I had that game differently. Is there another game that you had that you think the line's off on? Do you think the Patriots-Bills line should have been closer to a pick 'em? I mean, is there a game out of the three close ones that you think's wrong the wrong way?
No. I actually thought there was a chance the Chiefs line was going to be bigger, to be brutally honest with you. That what the Steelers did to get in the playoffs, tip the hat, and I know defensively they can get after the passer. It's tough to get to Mahomes. It really is. And then he's running around, and they played a few weeks ago. And Mark, I think, remember a couple years ago when the Niners and Packers played twice and San Francisco looked at Green Bay both times and said, here's what we're going to do, and did it. And Green Bay had no answers. And the conclusion basically was, if they played 10 times, the Niners would win all 10. They really would, even with Aaron Rodgers on the other side. Green Bay can't stop what San Francisco does. Mark, I don't think Pittsburgh's competitive Sunday.
I think a little bit of this game under 14 may have just been the fact that, like Dallas, the betting public loves the Steelers, and that they just put that low enough to make sure they're going to make money when teams are taking the 12.5, David. I mean, I do think Vegas adjusts a handful of teams. I think that the Steelers are one. I think that the Dallas Cowboys are another one.
The one thing I will say for the Steelers, I don't know if they could take advantage of it. The Chiefs had a good run in the middle of this season, about 8-9 weeks defensively. Last 2 weeks, Chiefs have not been that good defensively. They were really fortunate to get out of Denver with a win. Denver was running it down their throat and was about to put the put-away score on the board with that little fumble at the 10-yard line, return 90 yards for a touchdown. That's what got them out of there with a W. And the week before that, the Chiefs got carved up defensively. So that's for me, Mark. Pittsburgh offensively has not been good. But the Chiefs defensively the last 2 weeks have been a little vulnerable. Does Pittsburgh have anything to take advantage of that?
Problem is the last 5 weeks, the Chiefs have scored 48, 34, 36, 31, and 28. Unless it's 28, Pittsburgh can't win. I mean, that's the fact of the matter. Pittsburgh is not going to score more than a touchdown a quarter in this game. There is no damn way. They're not good enough.
And I think the Denver game is where Pittsburgh has to hang their hat, because Denver looks at that and goes, we really held them to 21. They got 7 points on a defensive touchdown. And the Steelers have to be thinking the same thing. Kind of like, maybe, we got off to an awful start in the first meeting. We were down 17-0 before we could blink. Maybe we can hold them to 24. Maybe. But I think it's going to be a blowout. Miller and Moulton. Matt Chatham played for the Patriots, helped them win 3 Super Bowls. He covers the Patriots. He will join us next. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network. He's a Raiders fan. What do you expect? Hates the Chiefs.
All right, I'm having a little issue here on the computer, David.
Okay.
Nothing that, I mean, I'm just trying to share the screen. It's not letting me, and it's kind of gotten goofy here. So I'm going to try to fix this, but you're maybe on your own here for the interview like you are anyhow.
All right.
What in the absolute hell?
Okay.
All right, I'm back. Don't know what happened, but there we go. David, so you know that's his Twitter picture. I'm guessing that's a kindergarten class picture there with the bow tie if you want to have a little fun with Matt. You with me? Can you hear me?
I am. Do you want to have some fun with him off the top and ask him?
He can't hear me.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And it was such a good first question, too.
I know. Well, I love his Twitter. His Twitter handle says he has 1 wife, 2 dogs, 3 rings.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Much better than 1 dog, 2 wives, and 3 rings. Trenton, we could if Felipe knew how to do that. You going to go about 10, David?
I'm sorry, what?
You going to go about 10 here with him?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to refill my coffee.
Okay.
Enjoy the interview.
Yeah. Say hi to the family for me. And Felipe, you'll want to turn down. Okay. Make sure you turn down Mark's mic. So. Wish everybody could have seen you dancing in the hallway at 5:28 a.m. 22 minutes before the hour. Thanks so much for being with us. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network, the Florida Sports Network. Matt Chatham's kind enough to join us once again. First time in 2022. Played for the Patriots, helped them win a few rings. Now he covers them for Nesson and host of the Real Thing Patriots podcast. You can follow Matt on Twitter at Chatham58, Chatham58. Matt, thanks for your time. How are you? Before we get into the, meat and potatoes of this, how old are you in your Twitter picture where you have a coat and that bow tie? I mean, we're on Twitch, and so the audience has been staring at the graphic for about 5 minutes and guessing whether you're pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, just beyond kindergarten. I mean, and that's a hell of a bowl haircut, Matt. I'm curious, do we know how old we are in it? 6, 7? Oh, okay, yeah, all right. There you go. I know it well. I married a minister's daughter. I've heard the stories. I know it well. All right. First off, third meeting. I mean, is that a factor at all? When you played, was there ever a time when you thought that it helped you or it hurt you, so much familiarity with an opponent? Matt, was there something different about Bill and the approach once you got to January and February, or was it exactly the same? The stakes were just higher. Right. He's Matt Chatham, played for the Patriots, has 3 rings with the Patriots, covers them for Nesson, also host of the Real Thing Patriots podcast. Follow Matt on Twitter at Chatham58, Chatham58. Well, last time they played, Bills never punted. That had never happened to a Belichick coach team before. Is it too foolish or arrogant to approach this game and look at Josh Allen and say, yeah, I don't know if we're going to change much. We just dare you to play that well again? Because, Matt, I mean, outside of a couple of Peyton Manning regular season performances, that was maybe as good of a quarterback performance as has been played in Foxborough during his 22 years. And Matt, final question. Any concern about Mac Jones and how he played down the stretch? Matt, thanks for making time for us once again. We really appreciate it. Continued success with Nesson and with your podcast. Matt Chatham, Won 3 Super Bowls with the Patriots. Nesson, The Real Thing Patriots podcast. Follow him on Twitter at Chatham58. Chatham58. Matt Chatham joining us here on Miller and Moulton. Buffalo by 4, Mark. That's the spread.
That is the spread. Buffalo looked, as you mentioned, looked terrific the last time they beat the Patriots. The time prior to that, we watched a game that we hadn't really seen since the 50s in the NFL.
And as Matt said, can't count on that again. All right. But it is going to be frigid. And does that play into, I think if the Patriots can get it going just a little bit, the conditions will favor them.
But they didn't get it going the second time against the Bills at all. And they got it going for like 2 plays the first time. I mean, yeah, New England ran it all but 2 times or 3 times or whatever the hell that was in that game. But it was the one long run that was the difference. Other than that, they didn't do much offensively.
They averaged, about 6 yards a rush. But yes, they had 2 long runs. The key, though, Mark, was that first long run gave them the lead. And I think that's what Matt was alluding to here, that, listen, they got to keep it within a score for the first quarter and a half here. Can't be down 14-3 mid-second. You know what I mean? 7-3 mid-second. Okay, that's fine. You just keep on keeping on. But I thought Mac Jones, I don't want to say he hit a wall, but I just think that teams figured out how the Patriots were playing and have now forced them to do things just a little differently. And, Mark, we've talked about it. It's not like they've got a terrific wide receiving core or anything.
No. Of the teams talent-wise, if you were to rank rosters, where would this Patriot roster be out of the 14 teams? Ahead of the Steelers. And then who else is it ahead of? Roster-wise. I get the Belichick factor.
I think I'd go ahead of Philadelphia, but I'm not sure.
Okay, I like that. Okay, so now we've got them ahead of Philadelphia. And we have them ahead of the Steelers. Are they ahead of anyone else from a pure roster standpoint?
Well, I guess it's a matter of how much do you believe that Burrow is propping up the Bengals? Because let's be honest, we all thought Cincinnati was a 6-7 win team this year. And
I think the Cincinnati roster is way better than the Patriot roster.
Okay. I mean, I know that their offensive weaponry is, but the roster as a whole, all right.
I think their defense has been underrated this year. I think they've got a really good run defense. I think they're physical. They're not maybe as good as the Patriot defense, but I don't think that they're light years behind it. That's all.
Weakest unit on the team, still the O-line, and Burrow's able to cover it up a lot. I mean,
when you have a Chase, you can do that. And a Mixon, for that matter.
Everybody should have a Chase.
Yeah, throw in a T. Higgins, it doesn't hurt as well. There's a few other things. So all right. So at best, we can say that they're better than the Eagles, that they're better than the Steelers, that they're better maybe than the Bengals.
But, I think the roster is comparable with Cincy, with Vegas, I think they're comparable there. So they're in the bottom third roster-wise. They need weaponry on offense. That's what they need. To be a true contender, they need weaponry on offense. They got a running back, and they think they have a developing quarterback. They invested in their tight ends for the umpteenth time in the last 12 years. They need wide receivers.
And then you look at the Bills, who there's not one area in which they statistically rank worse than 13th. That's defensive rushing. They're a top 10 team in every other facet.
And yet they didn't play to their talent quite a few times this year. I mean, the Bills going 11-6 is actually disappointing.
Totally.
You know,
totally. And I know we throw week 1 out, but they did lose to the Steelers week 1. They lost to the Jags.
They struggled with the Jets last week to put them away. And the Jets are not good. The matchup in this game that I just can't get enough of. Pride of Immokalee, J.C. Jackson going up against Diggs. I mean, that's big time right there. One guy has already gotten paid, and the other guy is going to be a free agent this year and is going to get paid. You don't see a lot of elite receivers against elite corner matchups. We got one.
Miller and Moulton getting into super wild card weekend.
Yes.
Our poll question reflects from that. How many of the underdogs are going to win? 0, 1, 2, 3 or more. That is the poll question. That Mark Miller, the David Moulton. I'm probably going with what the audience is, and that's 2, David.
To those in Tampa, St. Pete, thanks so much for listening. We'll do it again on a Football Friday tomorrow. For those of you in the 239, the bonus hour is next. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network.
The Boca Hotel in the 80s, Klecko, must have had more cocaine running through it than salt shakers. That's funny right there. Ooh, served caviar to Jerry Lewis. By the way, I heard on all accounts he's a really good dude, or was a really good dude. My buddy worked a program in Vegas years ago and said he was rock. And this is 27, 30 years ago, but it said he was rock solid. Philly, get off camera unless you're going to fix it. Like,
Mark, I'm sorry that this
until we can hear commercials. What am I doing looking at you?
We're on commercial break.
Yeah, I know, but I can't hear it.
I'm so sorry that this is happening. I have no idea.
Me too.
It's stressing me out.
So did Strikers and Bonita, Klecko. That's nothing unusual. Sorry.
Are you feeling good?
It wasn't the seat. It was more the whatever, the white thing on the back there, that big piece of porcelain.
I don't know. I leave the country.
I hear Richard.
I'm sorry.
It's not your fault.
You can't hear.
I'm not getting put Richard on so I can talk to him. He was. He came over because I don't know, he wanted to be seen. Philly can't go the whole show without being seen. It's a good point, Sean.
Yeah, we can't hear
I
commercials.
just need him to apologize for the physical problems. Just tell Richard, it's very simple. I am not getting a return feed from the station.
That's what I just told him in the hallway. And he's in.
If he's ready to find a wife, Sean, I'm going to punch him in the nose. He's 21.
So he's in with Felipe right now. He's taking a look at the board, asking questions. So
good.
Huh.
Oh my God.
He has no idea. Okay, is he going to try to look at something or is okay? What?
Literally, we have a Facebook community page. Hey, parents, be responsible and please ask your children to come home by sundown. Hey, you, shut up. It's on you. Hey, Derek, F off, dude.
Is that literally what you're sending?
No.
No.
Oh my God. Who is this clown? I think this is the guy that was going to shoot people earlier this year, too.
Oh, great. Okay. We're back in 15 seconds.
All right.
It is the bonus hour of Miller and Moulton on this Thursday. Thanks so much for being with us. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network, the Florida Sports Network. We've had 4 guests on the show already. It is just us for this final hour. Feel free to join us, watch us, follow us, subscribe to us. The Miller and Moulton channel on twitch.tv. There is a glorious Twitch chat room in which you can talk amongst yourselves and then also talk at us. And if you want to, text the show. If you never have before, simple FSN Radio, all one word, FSN Radio to 21,000, and you're in. And then you can text away. Mark, this has been the first time this week we have looked ahead to Super Wild Card Weekend. And we have done so under the theme of, hey, I know most of you don't think the road teams and the underdogs are going to win many games, but in the last 3 years, you would have been really wrong. Road teams, underdogs straight up. Underdogs straight up 8-6 in the last 3 wild card years and 11-3 getting points. Will the trend continue? Mark, what's your gut feeling? Does that trend continue?
Not to me. Not to me. We put our poll question up along those lines. How many underdogs are going to win straight up this weekend? And I probably should have put 1, 2, 3, 4 more because you know it's not going to be 0. But I think the last check, 70-some% were at 2. That's probably where I will be. And I think right now 2/3 of you are saying 2 will win. And that's where I am, at least 2, maybe 3. I think San Francisco wins outright. I've thought that since the get-go. I think Arizona's got a really good chance against this banged-up Ram team. And then is it the Patriots? Is it the Raiders? I'm banking more on the Patriots winning. I just have this feeling that the Bengals are going to take care of business at home. I actually think the Bengals could win. You've talked me into the Bengals having the ability to win a couple of games based on how this lays out for them.
Well, if you're looking at it realistically, if let's just say New England beats Buffalo, and I'm not on that train, by the way. I think Buffalo's the second best team in the AFC. They just haven't, they haven't played like it all the time. But okay, New England beats Buffalo. Right now, it's possible it could change. They probably then would catch a break and they'd go to Tennessee because they're the 6th seed. But, right now, if Kansas City and Buffalo seem on a collision course, though you want to be on the other side. I mean, nobody fears Tennessee the way they fear Kansas City. And so, Mark, if Cincinnati were to win, it's probably not going to be an awful weather game in Nashville. And hell, the Bengals will think we got the better quarterback. We got as good a weaponry, if not better than them. I mean, they're more playoff experienced. There's 6 straight winning seasons for them. I think 5 of them they've gone to the playoffs. But, I think the Bengals would look across at the Titans and go, oh, heck, we're a live dog here today, folks.
I'm with you on Buffalo. I think that, by the way, where do you rank Tennessee? I am just curious. I know they're not playing. I know it's Super Wild Card weekend, but you said Buffalo's the second best team. That means you think Kansas City's the best team. Do you think Tennessee is then third, or do you think right now with what they are that they're no better than in the group of teams that could be 3rd, 4th, or 5th?
No, I think they're the 3rd. I do, and I think it's close between them and Buffalo. And I understand that the Titans beat both the Chiefs and the Bills during the regular season. I get that. Pretty sure they played both of them at home. But in the playoffs, it's all about matchups. And I'm a big Tennessee Titans fan and what they've done here in the last 6 years. And everybody listening knows how much I love Tannehill. But, I even think Cincinnati gives Tennessee a real game.
Right. Tennessee got a good run defense. That's the start. And regardless if Derrick Henry's back or not, there's no way we could. I guess maybe we can. Maybe all the time off, you can expect Derrick Henry to be coming back at close to full strength. I have trouble with that. To think that he'll be able to carry the ball the amount of times that he did prior to the injury in his return to football. That seems unlikely to me.
I'm with you, especially the workload that he carried when things are normal. Yeah, that maybe 18 to 20 carries is one thing, but it's difficult to envision a 26 to 35 carry day, which is really how the Titans like to run them.
And that's how he likes to run. And hell, if they can do that, I'd be ultra impressed. If they start winning, it wouldn't be inconceivable to think by the time, if they get to a Super Bowl, that Derrick Henry can be that guy. But boy, oh boy, I have trouble thinking they can get that far with someone who's been injured for most of the season. And that's why I put a little stock in Cincinnati perhaps playing a couple of football games. I don't think they're playing in February, David, but I think they could be playing for a little while.
Vegas with a short week. That's my biggest concern. They played the late 4-hour game on Sunday, and then they've got to play the 4:30 game on Saturday. They're probably going to have one physical practice this week. That's it. Just one in prepping for the Bengals. They have won 4 in a row, though. And hats off to them, Mark, because this is a team that has been 6-3 and 6-4 the last 2 years and has finished, I believe, 7-9 and 8-8. They have collapsed in each of the last 2 years. And it looked as if the collapse was in late October, early November this year. But when their season was on the line, they won 4 in a row, and they beat some teams that they were an underdog last week at home against the Chargers. They certainly were an underdog going into Indianapolis.
Well, and I think you can say the same thing, and they didn't really recover from it. Look at Arizona, off to the great start. They lose 4 of their last 5 to finish the season, but they did beat the Cowboys in the midst of that. It's tough to have a lot of faith in Arizona because this is 2 years in a row that Arizona's gotten off. Last year, they didn't even make the postseason. This year, they get off to the great start and back their way into the postseason.
Right. Last year, they lose 4 out of 6 to miss the playoffs. This year, they lose 4 out of 5 and yet make the playoffs. Listen, when you go 8-1 on the road, though, if I'm Arizona, I don't think this is the worst thing in the world. The last time we went to SoFi, we drubbed them. And for whatever reason, we struggled at home this year. So I know in theory, it'd be nice to have won the division and be home for this game. You know what? In reality, hey, we're a great road team. Let's go on the road. They whooped Tennessee on the road. They whooped the Rams on the road. They whooped the Cowboys on the road. You know what? Let's go on the road.
And when they did whip the Rams, who did we see? Matthew Stafford throwing picks. He threw a pick in the loss. He threw 2 touchdowns and a pick in the loss, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions in the win. It's as simple as that. We've talked about a lot of teams and a lot of players. I think there is so much pressure Monday night on Matthew Stafford that it's unbelievable. He now has the team. He now has the defense. He now has weapons. He has all the things that everybody has asked for Matthew Stafford to have since he was drafted by the Detroit Lions. Now he has every one of them. And if Matthew Stafford doesn't win Monday night, it's going to all be on Matthew Stafford come Tuesday morning. Yes, that's why they acquired him. That is the whole reason that they traded for this guy, to get an upgrade from Jared Goff and to be able to play football well into January. And if he doesn't beat the Arizona Cardinals Monday night, it all falls on Matthew Stafford.
You're 100% correct, because this is also the very first time he will be the favorite playing in the playoffs. When he was with the Lions, they were playing on the road. He was the underdog. He was a wild card team. He was not a division champion. He's playing on a 12-win division champion team here. And they believe, much like Jerry Jones believes, who came out yesterday when he was asked, hey, is this a Super Bowl or bust team? And he went, unquestionably. Oh, okay. I mean, Mark, there are always coaches, seemingly every year, but really on average every other year. One of the playoff coaches loses their job. We're ranking the playoff teams 1 to 14 here. All right. There are 3 or 4 coaches that I think if they lose this super wild card weekend, they could lose their job. And I think Mike McCarthy's one, and I think Cliff Kingsbury's the other.
Wow.
I'm not even, Bisaccia with the Raiders, I don't think that counts. He's an interim, and, that to me is its own category. But, Mark, I really believe that Arizona and Dallas, that if they lose, that I don't think it's a sure thing that their coach comes back.
That is wild to me on the Kingsbury. The McCarthy, I never put anything past Jarrah. There's nothing that Jarrah would do that would even surprise me and go, oh, he fired a coach. Well, he was angry this morning. That wouldn't surprise me as much. And I think they're going to lose, for the record. I think San Francisco beats them. And I think Arizona loses. I think they've got the better shot. I think Arizona's got a better shot than winning than Dallas does, in my opinion.
Think about this if the Cowboys lose, for those that think I'm just bat blank crazy. And maybe I am. But first off, the owner just came out and said, I think this is a Super Bowl team. That's my expectation. Oh, okay. And you go out in the first round at home. What do you think Jarrah's going to be like on Monday if that happens? He's going to be spitting mad.
He is. Don't you think it's a little bit to how they lose, though? Because, let's just say Dak pulls a Dak. Like, Dak's had some out-of-body experience games when he's just looked awful. How do you blame that on McCarthy?
I don't think Jerry will just chalk it up to, well, we just bring everybody back the same and hope for a different result.
I gotcha. But if it's on Dak, what are you supposed to do? You just paid the man.
Blame the head coach that he didn't play better. I don't know what to tell you. You're an offensive guy. Why is it that – here's the other thing, Mark. If they lose, they will have gone 6-6 against everybody who's not in the NFC East. You know, that's the other part of Dallas here. They're 12-5, but they're 6-5 against the rest of the NFL.
That's a roster problem, and Jarrell won't admit that. How's that a coaching problem? He can win against teams in a bad division, and he can't beat good teams. It's a roster problem. It's not a coaching problem.
And as for Kingsbury, remember, they fell apart last year down the stretch. Fell apart this year down the stretch. And then if they're one and done, just
I know Tyler was banged up. I think that's an out there. Those two are tied together. I love where your thinking is on this. I disagree with you, but I like you bringing these out. I think the McCarthy one holds more water than does the Kingsbury, in my opinion. Miller and Moulton, the good, the bad, the ugly. Today was a day when what's on tap, still ahead, right here on the Florida Sports Network.
Did you get my text?
I think you're right, Johnny. I know exactly who you're talking about. When I used to do sales, I remember her. Not enough, but I remember there was a really good-looking lady that did hot dogs in the Cape. There was one in Fort Myers for the longest time, too.
I'll ask him about that question. But
I just have no idea. Is it possible?
No, but my thought is, I know that when you're out of town, Mark does what we're doing right now through that computer.
Right.
I'll ask him.
That's what we're doing it through now.
I mean, you would think it's not that because we did it Monday. So.
Well, what does he think it is?
No. I just wanted Richard to have all the information that, you know, we're connected here. Windows update changed a setting. I'm wondering if it does have something to do with the fact that one of the afternoon guys is broadcasting from home and maybe they changed something. And your IT doesn't do house calls. That would be a no. It did in our second act, but that's a whole other story.
it's my computer, guys. I know I'm not you, David, but I don't. There's no reason why. Because if I can hear David, I should be able to, in theory, hear the commercials. I think when we made some of the changes that were made, I think he might have lost a line, something. I don't know.
I mean, it is interesting that you can hear me, but you can't hear the commercials and you can't hear the guests.
And if it was just that, if it was just the commercials, we'd be fine. The guest thing's a real problem. A real problem.
May have to come in here tomorrow.
No, Vile, I actually went in there this morning to set all this up at 4:45 in the morning when no one was there. It's not the head. Guys, it's not. I'm just telling you. There's no way I'd be able to hear David if it were a headset or a computer issue. The computers are connected to one another. It's something from the board to that computer.
Oh, Richard's working on it. He doesn't have a solution. I can hear him. Well, what do we have to try?
He's saying turn it off and turn it on again, isn't it? Hey, tell Philly after the show, we have to, David, we have to do a 30-second promo for Port Charlotte today. Have to.
We can't do it tomorrow and send it to them?
They wanted it yesterday. We were supposed to do it yesterday.
Gotcha.
It was actually in that meeting we talked about. Didn't do it because I had to run out. That's funny.
As we approach 21 minutes past the hour, the bonus hour of Miller and Moulton here on the Florida Sports Network, the Florida Sports Network. Good, bad, and ugly. What's on tap? Today was the day when. All that good stuff coming up in roughly 20 minutes' time. Super Wild Card Weekend, our focus for a good part of the show. First time that we have looked ahead to the 6 playoff games, Saturday, Sunday, and yes, Monday night. It's part of our poll question. Road teams, underdogs. How many of them going to win? Super Wild Card Weekend. They always do better than you think. 0, 1, 2, or 3 or more. That Mark Miller, the David Moulton. You can vote. I voted 3 or more. Mark voted 2.
Yeah, I definitely think it's the Niners, and there's going to be one more. I think we're going to get back to a little more according to Hoyle type football this weekend. I just think it's because there's a little more separation. I'm not sure on the bottom end of these teams. Like you said, I mean, fluke's the wrong word, but don't you almost check off that first Patriots-Bills win as fluky?
Yeah, because there was an extra factor that, for the most part, never factors into games. I mean, that weather was severe. It was extreme.
And it was the wind that was extreme. I mean, it wasn't the cold's cold. Both of these teams can play in the cold. It's New England and Buffalo. It's going to be 2 degrees for their game Saturday night. That's not a big deal. I love as the Twitch chat room, people are picking their upsets, and so far it's just all different teams. Everybody's all over the place. A lot of people like the Raiders. I'm big on the 49ers. Of course, people are going to pick the Patriots because it's Bill Belichick. How much of a shot? You asked me earlier. How much of a shot do you give Philly?
Not much of one, to be honest. I don't. Roy Cummings thinks that the Eagles will have success running the ball. I think they have to control the game running the ball to have a shot. Tampa Bay scores points. I mean, a good day for the Eagles defense, Mark, I think would be to hold the Bucs to 27. I don't know that they can do much better than that. It will be windy. It will be rainy. Maybe, who knows, the field gets a little sloppy. Maybe that helps. But I really believe if you're Philadelphia, you've got to score a touchdown a quarter. You got to get to 28 to have a shot. You might have to get to 31. And I just don't see Jalen Hurts and that offense able to do it. They're getting a lot of people back off the injured and COVID list, though. A lot of people. But I actually think Tampa Bay is going to cover 8.5.
Ooh, looky there. David making a pretty bold prediction for that's a big number.
It is. It is. I think it's a really good matchup for Tampa Bay. I think they've caught a couple of breaks here in the last few days, moving up to the 2 and clearly facing the worst team in the playoffs in the NFC. So and it's a really sorry, Mark, and it's a really good matchup for them. Also, Philly's strength is running the ball, and the Bucs' strength defensively is stopping the run. So I would be shocked if the Eagles won.
So you like the Bucs to cover. We've already both said that Pittsburgh has zero chance, in our opinion, of winning that football game. And yet you're taking 3 or more. So you basically think, well, you said it because you think the Bills are going to win. So your upsets are you think the Raiders are going to win. If you're taking 3 or more, it's the Raiders, the Niners, and the Cardinals.
Well, I am hedging on the Niners and Cardinals. I really am. So then I only need 1 more. And I think I'll get it from the AFC somehow, some way.
Texters today have been all over the place with different comments. I thought the funniest thing that we did see, though, is earlier in the show, David, you were talking about the different, networks getting it, and you did get a compliment, said Fox has better stats from the booth. But when we were talking about McCarthy and you said you think he could get fired, someone did jump in on the text line, which, by the way, is texting FSN radio to 21,000. He says, if the Flyers fire McCarthy, I believe it's because they are all in on Bieniemy for their head coach.
In Dallas?
Yeah, if they fire McCarthy.
No.
It'd be Kellen Moore, right?
There you go. If anything, I think they push McCarthy aside because he doesn't want to lose Kellen Moore. There's a guy in their front office who a lot of teams want, and Jerry's been able to hold on to him. He's given him a lot of money, and he said, listen, don't go anywhere. All right, I know you don't get the title of GM here, but, just you got a good life. You're doing what you want to do. Here's some more money. And I think Jerry's going to have to basically promise Kellen Moore your coach in waiting, which is what I think he did to Jason Garrett back in the day when Wade Phillips was the head coach. And so I would be very surprised, Mark, if Jerry lets Kellen Moore get away.
And as far as the personnel guy, I think it's a terrific move to be in that spot. You get none of the blame and you get all the pay. All the blame is going to go on Jarrett.
Right.
What a great job.
Now all the credit goes to Jarrett too.
That's okay, because inside of football circles, people know that you're the reason why. The people that matter know who you are. The people that don't matter can continue to blame Jerry Jones. So, I do think that's, that to me is being the 78th ranked professional golfer in the world. No one knows who the hell you are, and you made $11 million last year. It's a good life, David.
It's a really good life. The short-term futures of these 3 quarterbacks, how big do you think this game is for? A, Derek Carr. B, Jalen Hurts. C, Jimmy Garoppolo.
What a great question, David. I think it's most important for Hurts because I think if he has a really bad game, it could affect him ever being a starter again in the National Football League. I think it could determine whether or not he's the Eagles guy going forward if they were to get embarrassed this weekend. Jimmy G is not going to be in San Francisco next year. I don't believe. You don't make that draft pick. You don't do what they're doing. I think for Jimmy G, it could do wonders for the Niners and what they trade him for. And until Russ is leaving Seattle, I'm not getting rid of Carr, if you know what I mean.
Well, I wouldn't get rid of him either. But, Russ isn't the only quarterback who has hinted that maybe he wouldn't mind going to Vegas.
And obviously, if Aaron Rodgers wants to, you're taking either one of those. But I'm of the opinion both of those quarterbacks are playing for their current teams next year, particularly Aaron Rodgers. Russ, I'm not as sure about. If Aaron Rodgers isn't a Packer next year, talk about a fan base that should sell stock and season tickets. It's the Green Bay Packers. They won't, but they should.
The Jalen Hurts scenario, it's similar to what's going on in Miami. The feeling is most of the people in Miami don't want Tua, including the owner. And that's the same feeling in Philadelphia. Yet all Tua did was go 8-1 down the stretch with inferior personnel around him. And all Jalen Hurts did during the second half of the year was go 7-3 and lead a team that nobody thought was a playoff team. And I don't know if the Eagles thought they were a playoff team. And here he is, got them in the playoffs. And if Jalen Hurts, Mark, as you said, let's just assume Tampa's going to win. But Jalen plays well. Remember like Taylor Heineke last year in the playoff game for Washington against Tampa? Tampa won. Heineke played well.
Yes, he did.
People came out of that game going, hey, this guy can play. Now, a year later, they're going to go find a quarterback. But I think Jalen Hurts is in a similar situation. The Eagles,
but he's got to play well, David. I mean, average to below average could just kill his return as the starter, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah. And then there's no guarantee he ever starts again. And you hit it on the head with Jimmy G. He's not going to be a Niner next year, but he could really increase what the Niners get for him, and he could just play his way. I mean, that performance Sunday, a lot of people saw that. He was playing injured. The thumb on his throwing hand, he hardly practiced at all during the week. He's got a hairline fracture in the thumb on his throwing hand. And he leads them back from 17-0 down. And the two throws he made on that final drive in regulation and tie the game, those were big-time throws. Big-time throws.
David, there's two instances in which quarterbacks did things. One never amounted to much. It was the Chris Sims playing with the internal bleeding.
Right.
One of the great performances that will never be talked about in the annals of the NFL. But the guy was bleeding on the inside and came back to win a football game. And then Matt Stafford with his one injury where he muscled him through, and I don't know if it was the shoulder or I think it was the left shoulder, his opposite shoulder that he had separated, and he got through a game and got a win. I remember those two games in recent memory. There's plenty more. But I think what Jimmy G did is so big for him because guys like me, and I don't make personnel decisions, obviously, but guys like me who do this for a living had called him basically soft. He was injury prone. He couldn't get through a year and certainly didn't want to play when he was hurt, or so it seemed. I thought the toughness factor, the X factor, the it factor, whatever you want to call it, that Jimmy G pulled off last week does a lot more for the other 31 teams in the league that are potentially looking for a quarterback to have confidence in this guy that they may not have had before last weekend, David.
Miller and Moulton. 28 minutes before the hour. The good, the bad, and the ugly. What's on tap? Today was the day when. And final thoughts on this Thursday edition of Miller and Moulton on the Florida Sports Network. Well, here's a question. Can we try it after the show's over, or will we not be able to test what it is we're trying to test? Because in theory, couldn't you press a button and Mark would be able to hear the commercials? And if he heard the commercials, then he would go, oh, well, that's different because I haven't heard the commercials all day. And we have to record a promo, apparently, which I will say, Mark's going to be a little awkward because your mic sounds differently than normal.
All right, well, then we won't do it. It's funny because yours sounds really differently to me, too.
That's interesting.
Not now, but when we're on air, it does. Like now you sound fine. The minute we go on air, you sound hollow.
Which is how you sound on air also. And asked what? Yeah. Yeah. The next time we're not doing a show is probably Memorial Day. I guess Good Friday will have to generate some discussion, but if I had to bet money, I would bet the next time we're not on the air is Memorial Day. Man, I love watching Joe Burrow play. I'll say, though, it was interesting. He wasn't the same quarterback at Ohio State. And remember, Urban chose Dwayne Haskins over Joe Burrow. And not a lot of people gave him grief about it either. And most people don't talk about Joe's first year at LSU. He was pretty good.
Is it because Urban wants to run it, though? I mean, at his core, Urban wants his quarterback to be able to run.
Right.
That's what it has, to me, what it has more to do with. But I'm only hearing one end of your conversation, so.
Well, I don't know that Dwayne Haskins was pretty damn good. I just think that what Mark said, that, Haskins fit the way Urban wanted to play in college better. What I found interesting is Burrow loves Urban. It says nothing but good things about Urban. Had a warm embrace with Urban when they played earlier this year in Cincinnati on the field. So he doesn't hold it against Urban at all. But I mean, no. Hey, I'm surprised he's between Ole Miss and Miami. I am surprised he has not been hired.
Who's that?
Orgeron.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Someone trying to start a lawnmower over there?
No. The fan.
Is that what it is?
The fan just turned on.
It literally sounded like like something was about to start. That's what it is. That microphone picks up everything.
Just weird. I put the screen on it and everything.
No, I mean, but when you type, I can hear every time you hit a keyboard.
Yeah, people have said that.
Like that paper, I can hear. I know everything that you're doing. My favorite's the cough medicine or the cough drops.
"21 minutes before the top of the hour. Thanks for being with us on this Thursday. Miller and Moulton, the Florida Sports Network, the Florida Sports Network. Tomorrow, a Football Friday, Pat Kerwin will join us. Also, some of the matchups that we did not get to today in terms of guests talking specifically about, because we had Roy Cummings talking Eagles and Bucks. We had Matt Chatham talking Patriots and Bills. So got a few games out there to dive into. And, of course, Pat will cover them all during our show tomorrow. Right now, it is time for Mark. I don't go back nearly as far as I normally do. I'm going to start with 1930 with oh, by the way, the Mickey Mouse comic strip first appeared on this date 92 years ago. I'm going to try to make a joke about this. It's a very dangerous topic to joke about. It was on this date, 1943, that Hitler declared, and I quote, total war, unquote, against the Allies.
Just partial war before then?
I was going to say, it does beg the question, what kind of war were we in before January of 43? Because it seemed total to me.
Based on the books and things I've watched and read, David, I'm with you.
Right. If that wasn't total war,
that was only 80%. Apparently, that was his B game.
Wow. Okay. Well, I will say he hadn't gone after Russia yet. Okay, it is true. Maybe that's what he meant. He hadn't gone east after Russia, which turned out to be a mistake. Big day in 1962. First off, Wilt scored 73, which at the time was the most points anyone had ever scored in a game. And it's still top 5 all time. Thank you very much. Chamberlain later this year would score 100. But Mark, also in 1962 on this day, Chubby Checkers the Twist goes number 1.
Didn't that go big because of Dick Clark? Wasn't it done on American Bandstand and then kind of took over the land after that, if memory serves me right, from this exact segment?
I believe you are correct about that. And also a lot of times that songs became a hit overseas and then reached here. This was a case of where it was a hit here and eventually crossed the Atlantic and became huge there as well. But the song is credited with, the whole twist craze and the game and everything.
Did you play a lot of Twister as a kid?
No, I hated it, actually. Absolutely hated the game. Think about it.
Well, David, you weren't always this big and you were young. I mean, when I was a kid, it was at my grandparents'. My Aunt Renee had it. We played a lot of Twister growing up. It was a fun game. That's all.
No, I didn't find it fun at all. Okay, first off, no, seriously. So let's say
I know you're just so matter of fact about a game that you haven't played. My guess is in about 48 years.
Well, first off, so you and I are playing Twister, and then, how are you going to spin the damn thing? Who goes next and that sort of deal? We're both, doing gymnastics there to try to keep our hands and our feet. And, come on.
I think I'm buying one today. My daughter would love Twister.
Now, that's a different story. Yes, she would. Right. A future gymnast, at least until she's about 12.
There you have it.
1968, an eventful day. North Stars Bill Masterson suffers a head injury. He would die 2 days later. The first NHL player to die as a result of injuries in a game. And also on this date in 1968, a musician whose career was essentially over and whose life was full of misery. Johnny Cash pulled up to Folsom Prison and decided to play a gig.
Played a couple. Pretty good album.
And it went over really well. Super Bowl VIII was today in 1974. It is the last time the Dolphins won the Super Bowl. Miami 24, Minnesota 7, Larry Zonka, your MVP. Super Bowl VIII, by the way, played at Rice Stadium in Houston. Not in the Astrodome. Rice Stadium. The game seems to have gotten a little bit bigger. Hey, on this day in 1979, the YMCA filed a libel suit against the Village People for the song YMCA.
Everything about this story is so fantastic.
I mean, hold on. If I was the judge, I'd be like, hold on a second. You're mad at them for writing this song? I mean, no offense, guys. I've been around X number of years. I've never talked about the YMCA before, but now because of these guys, we're actually singing the song. We think the YMCA is, hey, why don't we go down? I don't know, play a pickup game. I mean, let's have some fun at the Y. No, no,
that's it. That's what the song's about, no doubt. Maybe why they had a problem with it, but the song gets so popular, they drop the suit and take it on as their jingle, correct?
Well, I mean, I might work it into maybe that's the compromise. We're suing you for libel just so we could use it in our marketing.
And David, as the suits dropped later, because of the popularity of the song and what it did for YMCAs across the country, the government said, we might want to use the Village People to get recruits to the Navy. The U.S. Navy recruits the Village People to write the song in the Navy.
Right.
Everything about this is delicious, David. Every single thing about this.
Now, that is far more delicious than the YMCA part of it, because obviously this just in. Quite a few members of the Village People were gay. And, the military wasn't big on gays, certainly 40 plus years ago. We don't know if they're big on it now, but they certainly weren't then.
This is 30 years before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, David.
Right. Yep. My mother got dressed up as one of the Village People and saw them at Madison Square
Garden. Are there pictures?
There are pictures. There are pictures of my mother and Aunt Kathy.
Would love to see that one day. Not on air. That's not for everybody. That I would like to see.
No. The best part is they took the subway to the garden. I mean, imagine your commute home and you turn around and there's two, late 30-year-old women dressed up as two members of the Village People. Come to think of it, though, you're taking a train into the city. Probably nobody batted an eye, especially then. Mark, 1983, the American Medical Association urged boxing to be banned, and they were citing the declining health of Muhammad Ali. This was in 1983. It was on this date in 1990, Douglas Wilder of Virginia became the first black governor in U.S. history. Just 1990. 1999, Michael Jordan announced retirement number 2 right before the start of what would be the 50-game NBA season. 48 or 50 games. I think it was 50. I think the NBA season was 50, and the hockey, when they had their shortened season, it was 48. In 2000, Bill Gates stepped aside as CEO of Microsoft. He promoted some guy that no one had ever heard of before, named Steve Ballmer. And just a year ago, 2 years ago, I'm sorry, pretty eventful day. First off, Queen Elizabeth II came out publicly and reluctantly supported Harry and Meghan, living a more independent life. I guess that's what they call it, Mark. Living a more independent life.
Really? Disowning the crown is living a more independent life.
Right.
Okay.
I hate all of you. I'm leaving the continent.
Right.
Yes. It's called living a more independent
giving
life.
My title back.
Correct. I want nothing to do with all of you.
I was a prince an hour ago.
Right. 2 years ago, LSU beat Clemson 42-15. Remember, Joe Burrow at quarterback, Clyde Edwards-Helaire at tailback, Chase and Justin Jefferson were the top 2 wide receivers. It might be why some people think it was the greatest offensive team in college football history. Also, 2 years ago, A.J. Hinch, Jeff Luhnow, fired by the Astros for their roles in the sign-stealing scandal. Luhnow's probably been blackballed from the sport. Hinch got a job in less than a year. Bob Baffert is 69 today. Mark O'Meara is 65. Kelly Rudy is 61. You got to be a big hockey fan, but I threw that one in. Kevin Mitchell 60. Bam Morris 50. And the Bulin Wall. Nikolai Habibulin is 49 as Connor McDavid is 25. Some famous people. Patrick Dempsey is 56. Julia Louis-Dreyfus 61. Trace Atkins 60. Orlando Bloom 45. And Liam Hemsworth 32. And that mark is Today Was the Day.
That leads us seemingly into for the good today. You know, he was an ugly a while back. I'm going. It is the local hour with our governor. He was in Bonita yesterday and presented Bonita Springs with nearly $17 million to fix the draining issues that were hit from Hurricane Irma. As someone who was a resident of the 34135 back then, it is much needed, it is much deserved, and hopefully they do the right thing with it. So thanks, Gov. Appreciate it.
I think he stopped in at Dolly's.
Where else would you stop?
I know. I'm just saying, you know.
I hope he danced with her and had a piece of pie for crying out loud, because that woman can bake.
Just I thought you would appreciate that.
Love me some Dolly's. That's it, man. Now I want pie. What did you do to me, Molten? For the bad, we go to Lehigh Acres and the Esmeralda Cuban Bakery on Lee Boulevard. When, well, an older woman, she did what many people have done over the years. David, she hit the gas instead of the brake.
Oh, no.
And then ended up right in the front of the restaurant. The good news is no one was injured. As one of the neighboring businesses said, that place is usually pretty busy, in the fact that nothing happened. And despite the damage, the bakery is running as normal. That's a good Cuban bakery right there. Check out Esmeralda Bakery on Lee Boulevard, since they got the doors smashed in. And for the ugly, we go to Copenhagen, Denmark, where if you're a member of the military in Norway, upon the release from your service, apparently you've been ordered to return your underwear, bras, and socks because they're running low. That's right. The military has such a problem with outfits that the women are having to return their underwear, bras, and socks for the next bit of recruits.
Wow.
That's disturbing.
Yeah.
And that is the good, the bad, and the ugly on today. What the hell is today? The 13th?
Yeah. Yes.
January the 13th, 2022.
You're not going to believe this. Both the NBA and the NHL have full slates scheduled tonight, and not a single game is yet to be postponed because of COVID. Maybe it's a sign. 5 games in the NBA, the headliner Golden State at Milwaukee. It's the first of a double dip on TNT. Mark, 11 NHL games scheduled, and none of them canceled as of yet. The Lightning at home to face Vancouver. The Panthers not one of the teams in action tonight. College hoops, a little this, little that. I mean, you know, you got USC back in action after their first loss. Ohio State, Wisconsin, the Big Ten game on the Deuce at 7 o'clock, probably the headliner.
And Sony Open gets going today. The first full field event of the PGA Tour in Honolulu today gets going. You'll be able to watch some primetime golf tonight on the Golf Channel, I am sure.
No DeChambeau, wrist soreness, and he, made it through the Tournament of Champions, but said, "Yeah, I don't think I'm healthy enough yet to play back-to-back events." So that's always something worth paying attention to. That's like an athlete having a back injury. A golfer with a wrist injury, that's always a little scary to me, Mark.
Look, you're right. Backs, wrists, knees, all things that you would want to stay away from. But like I said, it's primetime golf. And in Southwest Florida, David, that is a big thing.
That's a big Thursday night. There's no question about it. So that's pretty much what's going on in the sports world today. It looks as if the firings have stopped. If David Culley has made it to today, I think the Houston Texans coach is not going to get fired. But I can't believe that he was on the list anyway, to be honest. So.
And if he doesn't get fired today and they do it after it, it's even more embarrassing. If you know what I mean. I mean, if the Raiders guy goes, that's fine. But at some point, you got to move on and keep on.
Miller and Moulton, thanks for listening. No, I gave you a 1. So
I didn't see it.